Cardiac Theatre and What It Is Productions present the Alberta Queer Calendar Project, a full year of podcast drama from queer Albertan writers in 2020. My name is Natalie Meisner. I'm a playwright, a professor of literature, and Calgary Mokinsis 5th Poet Laureate. I'm a queer mom, a member of a biracial, binational family, and an artist working for social change. And I wrote Legislating Love. My collaborators and I are thankful to be working and making stories about Treaty 7 in the traditional territories of the Cree Blackfoot Confederacy, including the Siksika, the Piikani, and the Kainai, as well as the Dene, Métis, Nakota, Saulteaux, Stoney, Tsuut'ina, and other Indigenous peoples. We are all treaty people. Legislating Love was inspired by the life of Mr. Everett Klippert, beloved Calgary bus driver, son, uncle, baseball player, hard-working Albertan, and the last person to remain in jail for homosexuality after it was decriminalized in 1969. There are so many queer elders whose stories warrant our attention, but it was Mr. Klippert who won my heart, and here's why. Despite the cruelty he endured at the hands of his fellow man, 10 years in jail, public shaming of himself and his family, he was hounded away from his friends, his romantic interests, the job that he loved. Well, you'll hear the whole thing when you listen to the play that follows. But despite all this, he never lost his own humanity, and he never lost his sense of humor. And that's what I loved about him. As we researched his story and spoke to family members, we were moved by account after account of his kindness. And this was borne out when his family gave us access to his letters, his journals, and his papers. There on the page, I met the true, kind, gentle Klippert that the papers of the day spoke of. Here was a man who passed his time in jail by writing limericks and reading Goethe and writing letters to his relatives. Historical research, community consultation with queer elders, and personal interviews have all contributed to the play that you're about to hear. Much credit goes to the Calgary Gay History Project, to Mr. Klippert's family, 3rd Street Theatre, Loft 112, and 2 members of the queer community. And now on to the setup for this play. Of course, Everett Klippert and Mr. William Watney are real people, and we've worked to stay true to what we learned of their lives from the historical records. The other characters that you'll meet emerged out of the meeting of research and imagination. As the play opens, Maxine, an aspiring present-day history professor, works to illuminate Mr. Klippert's place in queer history. We then flash back to the 1960s, and we see some parts of Mr. Klippert's life as a young gay man. This play premiered in 2018 at Sage Theatre and was published by the University of Calgary Press in 2019. Now, please enjoy this audio version. Episode 11, November 2020. Legislating Love, the Everett Klippert story by Natalie Meisner, presented with the generous support of Sage Theatre. Legislating Love is performed by Matt McKinney, Kevin Rothery, Kathy Zaborski, and Jen Forgy. The sound design is by KP Smith, and the director is Jason Memel. Production coordination is by Natalie Meisner and Jason Memel. Edited and mixed by Brian Bergman.
Can I let you in on a secret? I love my job. I love being the man who drives the bus, the guy who gets everyone where they need to be on time and with a smile on their face. The Calgary Transit Code of Conduct states drivers are to maintain a sunny disposition toward passengers. but I'd do it even if I didn't have to. I take it as a personal challenge to brighten the day of every single rider that steps onto my bus. In fact, you can look at life like one big bus ride. It's what happens between point A and point B. That's up to us.
Good afternoon, beautiful ladies and fine gents. This is Everett Klippert, your friendly Calgary Transit System operator. We are cruising through our beautiful, shiny city at the foot of the Rocky Mountains on route number 1. Our state-of-the-art new diesel-powered coach will take you in luxury and comfort along the scenic Bow River and through the heart of our downtown. Let me know if there's anything I can do to make your ride with us today more pleasant.
I look in the rear-view mirror and see a man running to make the stop. It's cold, and he looks kind of beaten down and discouraged. He sees he won't make it, gives up and starts walking. His shoulders seem weary, as if he's tired of keeping all that he feels and all that he wants to say locked deep in the strongbox of his own heart. Or is that me? Now, the rule book says a city transit driver may not delay the schedule of the bus to accommodate a single passenger. I should pull away. But life has enough hard edges, don't you think?
It's cold out there. Thanks for waiting.
Climb on board and warm yourself. Now tell me, what is the difference between a bus driver and a cold?
Well, I'm sure I don't know, friend.
One knows the stops. The other stops the nose.
I hate to have to be the one to tell you this, but you better not quit your day job.
No intention whatsoever.
Say, a fellow wanted to have a drink in peace with other men. Do you know where he might go?
If I were that fellow, I would take myself off to the bar of the Hotel Palliser. I can let you off half a block from there.
That would be swell. Might be that I see you there sometime then?
You never know. Maybe one of these days.
And thanks again for waiting for me. I was about froze.
Don't mention it.
I know it's not allowed, as a rule.
Just because something is a rule, that don't always make it right.
Thank you so much for agreeing to this meeting.
No sweat. I've knocked a gaping hole in my busy social calendar just for you.
It's very exciting to find a contemporary of Mr. Klippert's and a member of the LGBTQIA2S+ community.
Well, now there's a mouthful.
Yes, the terms are always evolving, aren't they?
Evolving. That's one way to put it.
Okay, great. This brings us to one of the things the study is trying to capture, actually. How you identify exactly.
How do I identify what?
Yourself. Do you prefer to be addressed as gay?
Ah, I see where you're going.
Some prefer queer or gender fluid?
I really just prefer cocksucker.
Are you being serious, or...
Or...
I am really happy you agreed to meet. It gets harder and harder to find gay people who lived through the 60s.
It was very inconvenient for you. How we keep dying.
I'm sorry, that didn't land how I imagined.
Fact of life, people die. Go on.
I feel fortunate to have found contemporaries of Mr. Klippert, anyone at all who lived through the 60s, to go on record.
Oh, I haven't decided.
A human subject is an exciting prospect for someone who spends their days wading through clippings and microfiche... What?
To go on record. I haven't decided yet.
But the release form that I sent...
You sent 12 pages of 10-point font to a senior citizen? What do you expect?
But you agreed to meet with me, Mr...
Call me handsome. Someone should.
Okay, Mr. Handsome.
You never imagine it'll happen to you, and then it does.
What's that?
Getting old. A word of warning, time is precious. Don't waste a moment.
Of?
Youth. Health. Life. I mean, what are you doing sitting here talking to me? Get the hell out of here and go get laid right now. Go on.
You want me to leave, sir?
Don't call me that. Unless you want to shine my shoes or something, in which case...
Well, you do know why I'm here.
Yes, your school project.
University study, actually. A qualitative look at sexuality on the prairies.
Oh, fancy.
And if you don't mind, I'd like to record our sessions on my phone.
No recordings.
All right, I understand. I can use a notepad. You are interested in being interviewed, though, right?
Oh, the staff come in. Very attractive orderly comes in this morning and asks after my children. Well, they're doing fine. Asks after my dear wife. Well, she's passed away many years ago, which I've told him already, but no matter. Poor fellow remains entirely tone-deaf to my varied attempts at innuendo. I hate to see you go, but I love to watch you leave, I say, and... nothing. Or he gets it and he's pretending not to. I suppose they train them to be neutral, but I am ready to put my eyes out from sheer boredom.
So you've agreed to talk to me because you're bored.
Why not?
But you won't be part of the study?
I may. I haven't decided yet. First, I have a question for you. I'll live slightly longer if I let them take it, but what would be the point of living at all?
I beg your pardon?
They already got one, and now they are coming for the other one. I knew it was only a matter of time.
I'm sorry.
But I get phone calls. My daughter, my grandchildren start up now too. It has to go, they say. Quality of life, so on and so forth. But I went to one session of a support group for people who had lost both, and let me tell you, there was not a smile in that whole group. It's still mine after all. Should have the right to keep it, right?
I'm sorry, you've lost me. Keep what?
My left ball, sweetheart. What else does a man have a set of that he treasures above all else?
I see. You want me to weigh in on whether or not you get to keep your testicle?
If you please.
At which point you may or may not agree to be a participant in my study.
That's right. Take a chance. Life is full of uncertainties.
I'm sorry, they didn't tell me you were ill. You must have...
Cancer, yes, prostate cancer. No one wants to say it out loud, as if the word alone could summon Beelzebub to your door. Anyway, answer the question.
Although it seems prudent to consider the advice of your doctors, I do believe you have the right, well, every individual has the right to make decisions about their body.
An opinion at last. I was about to toss you out. Now I have two other, we can call them requests if you like, but to be frank, they're demands.
All right, I'm game. Let's hear them.
Number one, and this is the most important one, and you've already come dangerously close to violating it. No whining.
But I'm not whining, Mr. Handsome.
Hear that tone? Chest voice, throat voice, if you must, but never the nose, darling. Never the nose. This place... art on the walls, good art even. We pay for it after all. But they are overzealous with the decorum. Hard to find someone to cuss with, and I miss it. So number two, you have to cuss with me.
I'm not sure I can do that.
You see the door, you're familiar with how it works. Grab the knob firmly and twist.
It would put me in an awkward position.
We spend our lives in various awkward positions, dear. Be a bit dull otherwise.
Protocol for interviews with human subjects states
Bye-bye, school project.
It's not a school
No skin
project.
off my nose.
With all due respect.
Have you ever noticed that when a person says, with all due respect, they are about to say something completely lacking in human decency?
No offense.
And when someone says, no offense, but you better brace yourself for a dirty bitch slap. Well...
You're just,
A prick? That's the consensus on the floor here among my new, what do I call them? Neighbors? Not quite. Fellow inmates? But I interrupted you. Go on.
This conversation hasn't gone anything like I expected.
I have surprised you.
Yes.
Well, that's something. Would I prefer a strapping, shirtless hunk sitting in your place and hanging on my every salacious word? I would, honestly. But times being desperate as they are, then an earnest baby dyke with a clipboard will do. Now, just say it one time with me.
Say what?
Cocksucker.
Sir.
Just say it. What are you afraid of?
Nothing.
Well, they won't throw you out. This is my room, my once vast, now shrinking domain.
I am not going to say that.
Oh, come on. Dirty words aren't dirty unless you make them that way. Both words are beautiful. Cock. Sucker. Put them together, it's like whipped cream on fresh strawberries. Are you worried someone will hear you?
Of course not.
Because that will kill you faster than cancer.
I'm not worried about what people think.
Oh, aren't you? What will people call me? Where shall I pee? What pronoun shall I use? Where are your big-knuckled stone butches? Your glorious broad-shouldered drag queen smashing the cherries off cop cars? No, now that all the hard stuff is done, you all scuttle off to the suburbs to get married and have rugrats and forget all about what came before.
That's not fair.
Chest voice, chest voice. See, there it is again. Imagine if we'd said, "That's not fair," to the good old boys in the pickup trucks when they jumped out of their cars during Stampede howling for blood. That's the problem with your generation. You're paralyzed with fear about how people see you.
My generation, the whole thing.
By and large.
Not that we're hurling out huge inflammatory generalizations or anything.
Oh, no, we wouldn't want that. Scotch? My own stash, you can't get anything decent in the cafeteria. Sorry, the cafe, if you please.
Sure.
If we'd stood around fighting with one another when the cops raided the bathhouses, if we'd fought with each other about how to arrange the letters in the GLGBTT alphabet soup when the boys with the baseball bats rolled up, what do you suppose? They would have split our skulls open on the street like a couple of warm eggs in a hot pan, my dear.
I can imagine.
Ice?
No, thank you. Now, I know that Mr. Klippert himself avoided the spotlight.
So he wouldn't have liked all this fuss, no.
But though he never intended it, his case was instrumental in the decision to decriminalize homosexuality.
Everett was a man, not a case.
Oh, I really didn't mean... my interview skills aren't... I should have been more clear with the consent forms. I'm sorry.
Calm down. I was just taking the piss. I'm warming up to you, actually.
You are? What would it be like if you didn't? You must have heard about the apology from the Prime Minister's office.
Yes, I did. I went and cashed my sorry check at the bank, too, and bought a lot of sorry nothing.
No apology makes up for the injustices of the past, but a full pardon makes a difference, doesn't it? For those convicted of gross indecency before the law changed?
A great fat lot of good an apology will do Everett.
But it helps his family who fought for his release. Maybe it helps the rest of us, too.
What is it you want to know?
Were you and Mr. Klippert intimately involved?
Perhaps. Do you want to know about that? Do you want to know what we did? What he liked? You dirty little beast.
No, I'm looking for context.
Ah, drat.
You see, I've scoured the court documents, and there is a firm historical record that can be constructed via news articles. But how he lived, what he thought, what the texture of his days would have been like. In short, I'm hoping you can help me get to know the real Everett Klippert.
The real thing, eh? You are nothing if you're not earnest. We have a couple of choices. I can tell you a version that you can print, but that will bore you to tears.
I don't want that.
Or all the juicy details you won't be able to print.
But...
Or we can just let it rip, see what happens.
Let's do that.
But at the end, I get the director's cut.
Meaning?
When you are finished, You have to give it to me, and I cross out anything I need to.
Okay.
Ever since I can remember, I have felt this way. And ever since I can remember, I've been told that what I feel is wrong in the eyes of other men. A sin, and a crime, and a shame for my family. The law says so, the good book too, doctors and lawyers and policemen. Good men whose job it is to protect us all agree. A homosexual is the worst thing you can be. But to me, it feels natural. I never wanted to cause a fight or make trouble. If you could close your eyes and imagine, whoever it is that you have that special feeling for, from your nose to your toes, imagine that you're never allowed to touch them again. Not without taking on the whole world in a bare-knuckle fistfight before breakfast. Not without losing your home, your family, your friends, your job, your dignity, and your freedom. Could you go against what your heart and your body are telling you? Maybe you've tried it. Maybe you've had to. Could you live without ever touching another human being again? Live in a world of handshakes or claps on the back? Maybe you could, but it's a cold world, a lonely one. Especially for someone with a warm heart.
So, do you come here often?
What's that?
Oh, I just asked if you come here often, which sounds, what do you like? What's good here?
The place is called Chicken on the Way. You come for steak tartare?
Steak tartare. No, that was really funny. You should be a comedian.
I am.
Oh, okay. That's cool. You mean that's your job, or...
Or what? Passion? Calling? Feel better if I say hobby? On the other hand, I could be pulling your leg right now.
Actually, I've been standing here trying to find the nerve to strike up a conversation with you, but I chickened out. Chickened out, get it?
I did, sadly. You better not give up your day job, if in fact you have one.
I teach at the uni.
Oh yeah? What you teach?
History. Canadian history, which everyone says sounds like a bit of an oxymoron, but...
How's that?
Oh, just that our history, in comparison to the long and storied pasts of other nations, is relatively short.
Ah, drank the settler Kool-Aid, did you?
No, don't get me wrong.
Plenty of people here on Turtle Island telling stories long before the settlers got here with the poxy blankets.
I didn't know you were...
Go on. You were about to make a staggering assumption about my identity based on what? My hair color?
No.
Skin tone? Blood quantum?
No, please. Just a silly joke at the expense of historians. But I can see how totally reprehensible from a First Nations perspective. No, Indigenous is the preferred term now, right?
Oh, you asking me or telling me?
Asking, of course.
Refreshing. But I think I'll let you do your own homework.
Fair. Look, I have an involuntary tic, or let's call it a dubious gift, for saying the wrong thing. But I do know we've only begun to scratch the surface of the injustices of the past, and I'm sorry.
You people love yourself some apologies. Sorry, always sorry. What are you sorry for?
All of it.
Well, that's quite a bit. Plus, sorry doesn't mean anything unless you take action.
Right. Reparation is complicated. Might not even be fully possible, but we need to try, right? And if it's really sincere, then... Can you please say something? Anything?
It's kind of fun to watch. The more you struggle, the deeper you sink.
Oh, fuck.
Like a dinosaur in a tar pit.
If I, as one individual, look you in the eye and try to make amends, does it count for something?
It does.
I don't agree with what's happened. I hate it.
Is happening.
Is happening. To your people? Who are your people, by the way?
I'm Métis. Come on, I'll tell you about it on the way.
On the way. I see what you did there.
You have to work it into the batter, not nail it on the nose. So, tell me, Professor.
Oh, no, please. I am a lowly contract worker grinding it out at the poverty line on sessional appointments with a slim chance of gaining a permanent employment.
Why is that?
Education system being dismantled under our feet, creeping co-option of intellectual life. Plus, my work isn't popular.
What's popular got to do with teaching at the uni?
You're familiar with the phrase, history is written by the winners?
Sounds familiar, yeah.
The people I find compelling are often... I seem to keep falling for the losers.
Wow. Is that what passes for a pickup line in your world?
Oh, wait, I'm not...
No? Okay. My mistake.
I was trying to talk to you, but I wasn't trying to pick you up. Which isn't to say that I don't find you... Oh, why do I do this? Every time I meet a beautiful woman, am I speaking out loud? I am. I have totally messed this up, haven't I?
Maybe. Come here. So, what are you into? The dark meat, the light, a little of both? Well, you asked me what's good here. Some like the thigh. You can really sink your teeth into that. But my personal favorite is the breast.
Oh my God.
You poor thing. I have been checking you out all the way through the lineup. Let's get out of here. Here's the part where you say yes.
But I just uttered some of the most unenlightened things a person could ever say.
Just yes.
Yes. Oh, now? You mean like now?
Don't you sometimes just wish you could skip all the bullshit? Skip right to the good parts?
That sounds... Wow, great. But to be sure we're on the same page here, can you define good parts?
Well, we would usually stop this conversation right now, exchange digits, and begin the weird mating dance of the modern lesbian. Coffee first, right? Or tea. No full meals, no booze, only light chit-chat. Then we both run home, creep one another's social media for obvious signs of wacko. None noted? We move on to dinner, but only after a waiting period because, God forbid, one of us two dykes seems interested or, Lord above, eager. All this usually takes 4 to 6 weeks, after which we just throw in the towel and move in together.
Move in?
We both know the U-Haul hangs over the first moment of any lesbian flirtation. See? There it is. The great big orange and white piano in the sky waiting to fall on our heads. So, we find a place, go splits on a sofa, we get a mutual cat, a co-cat if you will. Name him George.
Stop! This is madness.
What?
George is a terrible name for a cat.
But we don't have to be those lesbians.
We don't?
Do you believe we were meant to meet here today?
I don't personally find belief a reliable instrument with which to navigate the world. I can't tell if you're kidding or...
Yeah, that'll probably keep happening. So, what if the Creator placed us right here, right now, with boxes of chicken in our hands as some kind of test?
I honor and respect all your ways of knowing, but I should let you know I'm a materialist.
Ooh, sounds serious.
A Marxist feminist materialist, in fact, with a strong existential leaning.
But you're pretty cute. We'll get it looked at.
Are we actually having this conversation, that chicken on the way?
Hey, don't knock COT dubs. This is a very important place for my people.
You mean this place was built on a sacred site?
Built on? Mary Sue, this is a sacred site. My grandmother brought us here for a 3-piece dinner every Sunday afternoon for my whole childhood. Corn fritters, amen.
Should we be joking about this?
What you want to hear? 500 generations of people hunted, trapped, harvested, lived, and loved here before your people came and stole the land?
Well, that's true.
Yes, but I can see all the way to the end of that conversation. It gets me some earnest commiseration, a shoulder to cry on. What it doesn't get me is hot sex and you making me an omelet in the morning.
In this case, it might actually.
Dear Sis, thanks again for filing those appeals. Lord knows where you get the stamina when all they do is slam the door in your face. Say, if life's a box of chocolates, how come I keep getting the one with the cow patty center? You asked how I'm getting along. They let me watch the television now, so I get to see something of the world, which is a great relief. The fellows out in the yard get a bang out of picking on a guy like me, but they seem to calm down again if I pay them no mind. They say if life hands you lemons. You figure there's enough sugar in this world to make lemonade out of this one? Well, now let's try. The bright side of prison. The bright side of prison. 3 square meals a day, though the fare is nothing to write home about. Lots of time to read and write letters to my favorite sister. Lots of time to write anything I want. Maybe I'll turn my hand to poetry like Aunt Cora. There once was a young man from Kindersley who went about love quite timorously. He fell for a bloke, the trial was a joke, and in jail does he languish perpetually. That wasn't... I'm sorry, sis. I know that's not funny at all when you're working so hard to get me out. You ask if I have any regrets. Well, I can honestly tell you I never hurt anyone, and I am not sorry for trying to understand what it is that I am. But I am most truthfully and awfully sorry for the trouble I brought to your door.
Nice view of the city from up here.
Well, that's why I chose the place.
So your firm built that building?
Yep.
And that one over there?
Yes, indeed.
What a legacy.
And you'll see that photo wall? My kids? My grandkids? That's the real legacy.
Beautiful family, really.
Thank you.
This is amazing, too. Just to look down and see your work in the actual skyline.
Well, I look at it. I see materials lists, man hours, budgets, shortfalls. I can actually still feel the stress if I think about it.
A tough industry for you in those days, I would think.
Fucking possible.
Did you feel that you were able to be open about your sexuality at work?
Never. If they had known, I wouldn't have gotten a single contract. You tell yourself, after I land the next big one.
Then what?
Then it's the next one. Then you say, one day when I get to the top, when I make myself indispensable, one fine day I'll say, I've been walking among you all this time. See now, a filthy faggot has filled out your payslips and given you Christmas bonuses all this time. And the sky did not fall.
And the fine day, did it come?
Well, there was my wife. I didn't want to dishonor her, so I waited. After she passed on, I found the strength to tell one man, a longtime friend. Attitudes had shifted. We'd known each other for 20 years. I thought he could handle it.
What happened?
Blacklisted. Never spoke to me again. God damn, I hate my fellow man some days.
Is today one of those days? 'Cause I could come back another time.
Sit down, you pain in the ass. You're not getting away that easily. Oh, wait a minute now. Is it my imagination, or did you just try to crack a joke?
I have met someone.
Oh?
She's a comedian, so maybe it's rubbing off.
Something's rubbing off. Ha! Thought something was different about you.
Her name is Tonya. She's smart and funny and just so...
You're hot for her.
She's just got this amazing energy. She makes you think anything is possible.
Well, if you like, I can boil down the accumulated wisdom of 7 decades. Maybe save you some pain.
I'd love that.
You find somebody that gets your dick hard. Oh, I mean, your vajayjay, your lady bits, call it what you like. You find that someone, and you can also stand them as a person. You grab on tight and don't let them go. Better let your heart stop beating than let that flame go out. Well, you're making notes. Is it helpful?
Not for the study. I've started a separate file for crucial life advice.
Okay, then. What else do you want to know?
Where could gay people meet here in the city in the 50s and 60s?
Nowhere was safe, but we didn't let that stop us. We found one another all right, in locker rooms, in alleyways, in parked cars.
How did you know someone else was gay? Was anyone using the hanky code at the time?
Nah, not till the 70s. Oh, I miss the 70s.
How could you know if your advances were welcome? How could you know that he wouldn't...
Kick my ass? You had to read body language. Look for eye contact.
Sounds exciting.
It was. The stroll on the leaf-covered banks of the Bow River. We made love in alleys and bathrooms and on top of bags of cement being mixed up for the Husky Tower. Every place we could find away from the eyes of the bastards who wanted to kill us.
Who were the bastards?
Anyone? Everyone? If you picked a guy up, you test him. Make sure he wasn't an undercover cop.
Test him how?
Make him go first. Put his money where his mouth is. Was it sweeter, perhaps? Because of the danger? Well, I ask myself that sometimes.
Wow.
But you can't write that in your report, obviously.
What? Why not?
Everyone will hate you. The straights, the gays. You can't win.
This isn't about winning.
No? What's it about, then?
Keeping our histories alive, so that every young person who feels same-sex desire doesn't have to feel ashamed and worthless and alone, like they don't deserve to walk the earth.
Is that how you feel?
Sometimes.
Even now? Even with the whole world on your side?
The whole world isn't... Never mind. Can you tell me more about your home life, your wife?
My wife was a wonderful human being. We cared deeply for one another.
Was she aware that you had relations with men?
We didn't speak of it, but after the children, we took separate bedrooms. We had an understanding. Sometimes I wonder if she, too...
Might have had feelings for women?
She had some intense friendships. I don't know much more than that. I wish I could tell you more. I wish I'd asked her.
A lavender marriage.
Is that what it's called?
A union without sexual intimacy to escape persecution. Nearly every society has them.
Is that right? Well, she never wanted to discuss any of that business. At least, it seemed that way to me.
And what about now? Have you thought of opening up to your children, your grandchildren?
Nah.
Why not?
Hey, everyone, Grandpa's gay. It would be something like a joke.
It's not ever a joke, handsome. Not then, not now.
They don't want to be bothered.
Give them a chance. They might surprise you. What about your own father and mother? Was there anyone you could confide in as a young person?
My father? It's the fathers that mind the most. Mine was a well-known man, a difficult man.
He would have had objections.
If you call a fist in the mouth an objection. In this city at that time, every contract depended on your influence. If it got out that his son was a poof, a faggot, forget it. Now, I look out the window on any given day and see you all strolling along the river hand in hand, right out in the open.
The changes in the law have made life better, but...
Better? Oh, it's a goddamn cakewalk.
Cakewalk, yeah.
Did I say something to upset you?
No, I'm fine. Just talking about fathers. My own father and I don't...
How long?
4 years now.
Did he throw you out for being gay?
No, it's just... Well, he'll never say it out loud, but he, does not love me.
Are you sure about that?
He goes to the rest of the family behind my back, tells them he has objections to my lifestyle, as he calls it. Well, I have objections to his bigotry, so now we are in some kind of personal Cold War. I'm sorry. We're here to look at your past, not mine.
Did you ever think that it might just be the same task, my dear?
Like you said, we have it easy. No reason to whine.
That's not whining. What you just told me just now, that was all in the chest. Okay, let's get back on track. I first met Everett in 1961.
A 4-piece dinner with extra corn fritters, if you please.
Oh, it's a bitter one out there.
Sure is.
Hey, now, I know you. You're the bus driver. What's the difference between a bus driver and a cold? One knows the stops, and the other stops the nose. The night you stopped for me, I was pretty low. I quarreled with my pa, and he threw me out.
I had an inkling.
What you did made all the difference.
And how are things now?
Better. I already got a job. Didn't even need the old man's connections.
Well, that's grand. What you doing?
Building a new tower.
You don't say. Tallest in the country when she's done, I hear.
Never mind that. Tallest on the continent.
Man alive.
I'm a little short for cash. Could you spot a guy $1?
I can probably do that.
Thanks. Pay you back real soon. Promise. You should see the base of the building. It's like an iceberg.
Iceberg? How's that?
Well, the bit you see above the ground is just a start. More than half of the thing is dug underground. Come on along. We'll sit up in the crane and eat our dinner. Drop the little chicken bones down in the wet cement.
Now there's an idea. Imagine all the little bones preserved deep inside the building long after we're gone.
A nice view. And there's no one else around this time of night.
Well, now, that does sound nice.
Let's go.
And without further ado, give a big laugh rack welcome to, Tonya? Anyway, put your hands together.
Oh, wow. Thanks for that lukewarm welcome. Hey there. Hi, everyone. If you read the program, maybe you might have seen that I'm the only Indigenous person on the ticket tonight. The only dyke, and the only woman, too. Hands up if you're worried you're in for a round of man-bashing. Nah, not my deal. Hands up if you're afraid I'm here to rake you over the coals for your ancestors' crimes. Hands up if you've ever wondered what lesbians do in bed. Hands up if you already know. Hands up if you're just here for the cheap beer. People always want to know, are you mad? Kind of a raw deal, right? Broken treaties, forced relocations. But what's a couple 100 years of colonial exploitation between friends? Let's let bygones be bygones. Times change, march of modernity. And then there's the residential schools. Okay, fuck it, we're mad. There, I said it, we're mad. But that doesn't mean we, you and I here in this room, can't still be friends, does it? Or does it? You know, my ma didn't have a big reaction when I told her I was a lesbian. So you're into the beaver instead of the stag. No big deal. But recently, I had to break it to her. Not only am I dating a woman, I am dating a white woman. And a professor. Well, that was the last straw. Oh my God, says Ma. We'll have to be minding our P's and Q's all the time. But then she's like, oh well, maybe we can get some help with the Sunday crossword. And she just grabs her purse and heads out to bingo. Just where do you think you're going?
Didn't want to wake you.
I didn't think anything could wake me after last night.
Yeah, that was... I mean, you were... wow.
No, you were wow. Come back here.
Well, I would love to stay in bed all morning. I have a deadline.
Ooh, deadline.
Have to finish this paper. I've already had 2 extensions.
What's it about?
Policy stuff. Kind of boring.
Try me.
So, in 69...
69?
1969 is the year we think of homosexuality as being decriminalized in Canada.
It's not even that long ago.
But under Bill C-150, the Criminal Law Amendment Act... Are you sure? It's kind of dry.
Doesn't feel dry to me.
You're bad.
Yeah, it's a good bad though, right?
Think of the 60s. We think of...
Peace protests, Woodstock.
the space race, the moon landing.
That shit was poorly shot on a Hollywood backlot.
Really? We're going there?
Put it past them?
That's a whole different discussion.
Fine.
Feminism, the Black Power movement.
The Red Power movement.
Yes, all coming together at the same time. People in the 60s lived intersectionality before the word was even used. Every liberation discourse we have now was shaking out its wings for flight.
When you talk like that, it is so damn hot.
Be serious for a minute.
Okay, I can serious. 1969 was also the year they tried to replace the Indian Act with, wait for it, the White Paper.
Ugh, yeah.
No one even saw the irony.
Right? Sometimes being a historian is just a process of turning over shovels full of shame.
Well, keep putting your back into it, girl.
You remember the saying, there is no place for the state
In the bedrooms of the nation, yeah. Daddy Trudeau.
No, see, people think he made it up, but he actually borrowed it from a Globe and Mail reporter, one Martin O'Malley. The debate raged in the papers, the courts, and the court of public opinion, and came to rest on the plight of one man, Everett George Klippert. He wasn't an activist or a public figure. He was just somebody's son, somebody's brother, somebody's uncle, and the city of Calgary's favorite bus driver.
At your service.
He would tell stories, point out the sights. Riders would let a bus go by and delay their trip just to start their day with Mr. Klippert. When he was questioned by police, Mr. Klippert did something unheard of. He told the truth.
To the cops? Oof. Everyone knows you can't do that.
He admitted his attraction to men, even asked psychologists how they would feel if the tables were turned. His honesty was later used against him. They said it was proof that he would seek out male partners if released, and for this alone, they labeled him a dangerous sexual offender.
That's fucking terrible.
He got an automatic life sentence. There was a public outcry, headlines in all the newspapers. Gentle Klippert, must he really get life? His case won over hearts and minds.
Wow. A big gay hero from right here on the prairie.
Everyone kind of assumed that when the law changed, they'd let him go, but they didn't.
Why not?
Well, that's the paradox. Public acceptance of homosexuals increased, but there was a backlash by law enforcement. They said since he was arrested before the law changed, it was not retroactive. It was his sister Leah, a legal secretary, just refusing to give up and filing appeal after appeal that finally got him out after 10 years.
10 years.
He moved to Edmonton, got a job as a truck driver, and started using his middle name. Eventually, he married a woman quite a few years his senior, a marriage of companionship, his relatives say. Over the years, journalists, gay organizations, and filmmakers approached him again and again to illuminate his place in history. He refused every single request.
After all that, he must have wanted to be left alone.
And so he was, until recently. A story in the Globe and Mail prompted a wave of research about his life and others like him. There has been a full juridical pardon for every Canadian whose life was mutilated by the so-called gross indecency laws.
That's an amazing thing to be a part of.
His family have been really helpful. And then there's Handsome, my interview subject in the seniors' residence, but he's complicated.
Handsome?
One of Klippert's lovers. Doesn't want to give his name, so he asked to use that pseudonym. Also won't let me use anything from his interviews unless he vets it first.
Fair ask.
And he also tried to make me say cocksucker out loud.
He made you say cocksucker at the old folks' home?
Assisted living facility, but yes.
Oh, I like him already.
You two would probably get along.
Take me to meet him one of these days. Okay. I see you itching to get at it. I'll make coffee.
If Cupid lines you up with his bow, there's something I want you should know. Call it love, call it lust, just do what you must to avoid being hit by that bus.
Still in my work clothes. I didn't have time to change.
That's all right.
Do I reek?
Not so as you notice. You working long hours?
Sure enough, takes some sweat to make an imprint against the big old sky. But enough of that.
Oh, hold on.
Hey, what's the matter?
Just thought we might talk for a minute.
We're talking. but you can walk and chew bubblegum at the same time, can't you?
Sure, but...
I'm not much of a conversationalist. What do you want? A cup of tea and a big old chin wag?
Nah, just like to hear about your life, you know?
What do you want to know?
Like, why are you working from sunup to sundown? What do you care about? What are your dreams?
I want to build towers of my own.
That a fact?
Yeah, and I'll do it too, with or without my old man's help.
He in the construction business?
He is the business, in this town anyway. Says I'll amount to nothing, but he'll see. I'll be a man worth knowing one day.
You already are in my books. My own pa is... Well, he's a good man, but he's also a God-fearing man. Sometimes I think If I could just talk to him and explain.
Well, to my father, this would be pretty simple. He'd take me out behind the barn and shoot me, like he would a sick animal.
But that's not right. I don't feel sick, do you?
No, but it's
What?
a flaw, an affliction.
No, don't say that. You are altogether handsome. There is no flaw in you.
Come on now.
Don't you ever wonder why we have to hide away like this? We aren't hurting anyone after all.
You are a thinker, all right, I'll give you that. A real deep thinker. I can't see as how it's going to do you much good.
Why? Why has life got to be like this for us homosexuals?
Don't call me that. Let me get something real clear right now. I'm not one of your kind. Ask anyone, and I was never here tonight. Ask anyone, and I am pulling the double shift down at the worksite, ankle deep in concrete.
All right, then. You don't have to be sore about it.
Everett, if anyone ever asks you about
Never
me...
heard of you. Don't worry, your secret's safe with me.
Why do you talk so damn much? Don't you see it's the naming makes everyone upset? It's the naming that makes it dirty.
Well, there's where we'll have to agree to disagree. Because I truly believe that things become more beautiful...
Ah, come off it.
handsome then. Things become more handsome when you name them.
For the record, please state your full name and occupation.
Everett George Klippert. I'm a bus driver for Calgary Transit.
And before that?
I worked over at the dairy officer.
Kind of a dirty job. You like to get your hands dirty, Klippert?
Well, cows are clean animals, actually. Still, I love driving the bus more.
You must meet a lot of people.
Yes, sir. It's the best job I ever had.
A lot of men.
I try to make the day of every passenger, man, woman, or child, just that little bit brighter.
How exactly do you do that?
With a greeting or a joke. Shall I tell you one of my old standbys?
We don't have time for jokes, Mr. Klippert.
I suppose not, in your line of work.
I deal with criminals every day. Give a criminal the idea that the law is a joke. Well, I guess he figures he can carry on breaking it. If I contacted your employer, he'd give me a good report of you?
I'm not one to toot my own horn, but I have been selected Employee of the Month. This year, I get to drive the Christmas bus.
The Christmas bus?
Let you in on a little secret. We don't actually have the real old jolly elf on board.
Can you stick to answering the question?
The Christmas bus, sir, drives down Route 1, wrapped in a giant red bow, and the ride is offered at the discount rate of a nickel. Calgary Transit's way of saying Merry Christmas to all the people of our great city. A small thing, but it really gets folks in the spirit.
Indeed. I'll need a full account of your whereabouts yesterday.
I was at work for most of the day. Listen, has there been an accident? Has someone been hurt?
I'll be asking the questions here. Start at sunrise and go from there.
Well, I got up and went straight to work. Drove my route until dinner time. Then I ate at the bus barn canteen with the other fellas.
And then?
I went out.
Out where?
Just walking.
That answer is not going to pass muster. You walked where and with who?
With a friend.
A man, I take it.
Yes.
So, what did you and he get up to then? And does he have a name?
Well, of course he has a name.
I am losing patience. Tell me the man's name.
I can't.
Why not?
On account of I promised not to. And on account of I don't want you to go after him too.
Mr. Klippert, I am not going after anyone. I'm an officer in the line of duty following up on a very serious allegation made by an upstanding man of this community. Now, if you haven't done anything wrong, if your friend hasn't done anything wrong, then there's no need to be concerned. Did he?
Did he what?
Do anything wrong?
No, sir.
Then tell me his name, unless you want obstruction of justice charges on top of everything else.
I can't in good conscience bring trouble to the door of a friend.
Seems trouble has already found you both. Have you been drinking, Mr. Klippert?
No, sir.
Is what I'm saying putting you to sleep? I don't feel like I have your full attention.
I was thinking of A Touch of Evil. I saw it at the Chinook Drive-In. Orson Welles and Marlene Dietrich. Really terrific. Did you see it?
Is the drive-in a place you frequent?
Why, sure. Everyone loves the pictures. Orson Welles as Captain Quinlan says to Marlene Dietrich as Tonya, "Come on, read my future for me." "You haven't got any," she replies. "What do you mean?" he asks. "Your future is all used up."
Is this going somewhere, Mr. Klippert?
It's just, you ever get the feeling you're stuck in a movie? A bad one at that?
I can't say as I have.
I don't mean any disrespect. I've just never had any dealings with the law.
I have here a complaint. A father and upstanding member of this city seems you have been harassing his son.
I haven't harassed anyone.
It's my sworn duty to protect the young men of this city.
Protect them from what?
From you, from those of your ilk, from debauchery.
I never hurt anyone. I don't know what debauchery means. Sir, please.
The hell you don't. Corruption, perversion. You know what that means, I bet.
I haven't done anything wrong.
Are you a sodomist?
No.
Gross indecency? Surely no, that's against the law.
I'm not a man who studies the law.
That's pretty damn convenient. How about the word pedophile? Does that ring a bell?
I never hurt anyone, I swear to you.
A pedophile, Mr. Klippert, is someone who sexually molests children.
Children? No. I would never. Please, I swear on my life. I never did force anyone.
Force anyone to do what?
Please.
And what do we have here?
My address book.
Theodore Wilmot, 185 4th Avenue. Shall I go by and see what Theo has to say for himself?
He's my friend.
William Bullmore? Maybe bring him down to the station for a chat? Oh, and what's this name right here? I can't read your handwriting. It starts with an H, A...
No, please.
N. There are a lot of names in here. We are in the midst of an epidemic and no one wants to hear it. The men in this book, did you touch them in their private parts?
Not everyone. Some of those are my relatives. Some are my friends.
Some, then? Exactly which of the men in this little black book?
I can't do it.
What's that? You'll need to speak up, Mr. Klippert.
You want me to rat them out, but I can't. If I confess, will you promise to leave the others in peace?
This is a criminal investigation. I can't personally promise anything, but you're always better off cooperating with the law. Good decision. We live in a fair and just country, Mr. Klippert, with laws and protocols. Canada isn't some petty tin can dictatorship. Let's get these handcuffs off of you. Take your time, finish up. We'll get a cell ready for you.
Cell? Am I going to prison?
Until your day in court.
But I can't. I have to drive the Christmas bus.
Come along now. You won't be driving any bus at all for some time, Mr. Klippert, Christmas or otherwise.
Why not?
What you have confessed to is gross indecency under the Criminal Code of Canada. It carries a prison sentence of 4 years for each count, and you'll remain in custody until a date is set for your trial. With the holidays upon us, that date will take us into the new year.
I'll be in jail for Christmas.
Afraid so, Mr. Klippert. No one likes being on the inside over the holidays, but we make the best of it. Turkey and all the fixings. The ladies from the church put on a big spread for all the prisoners.
Prisoners? That's what I am now. A prisoner.
Don't take it too hard, son. You did the right thing.
Did I?
This has been part 1 of Legislating Love, the Everett Klippert story by Natalie Meisner in the Alberta Queer Calendar Project. Make sure to listen into part 2. You're about to listen to part 2 of a 2-part episode. Make sure to check out part 1 first if you haven't already.
You like the picture shows? I do. I mean, who doesn't, right?
Godzilla, king of the monsters, alive, surging up from the depths of the sea on a tidal wave of terror to wreak vengeance on mankind. Godzilla, king of the monsters, it's alive! A gigantic beast, stalking the earth, crushing all before it in a iconic cavalcade of electrifying horror.
In the pictures, anything can happen. Anything in the world. You ever look down at your own hands? Try it now. Familiar, right? Know it like the back of my hand. We say this about country roads that we wandered as a child, or hymns or nursery rhymes. Any old thing you know so well you can't remember how you learned it first. Have you ever been fingerprinted? It's mighty strange, I don't mind telling you. The policeman takes your hand ever so gently. You can't move during this. You have to hold your breath while he presses each finger first into the ink and then onto the blotter, rolling it from one side to the other until he has a full set. The ink stains your hands for a long time after. A set of fingerprints all by themselves can make it seem like you have done something wrong. Your own hand that fits snug into your ball glove. Your hand that can fix things and care for the sick. Well, they don't seem like your hands at all. They seem like a monster's hands.
Raging through the streets on a rampage of total destruction. Jet flames cannot destroy it. Bombs cannot kill it. All modern weapons fail. Is this the end of our civilization?
These fritters obscenely good.
If they bottle this smell, I'll wear it as perfume. I'm headlining tonight. Pretty straight crowd. I need a massive icebreaker.
They'll love you.
I'm the only on the ticket again. How do you represent all that and still be funny, right?
You can, because you're fucking brilliant.
You're biased. Hey, if I'm all that, when are we going to make it official and introduce the old families?
There's no big rush on that, is there?
I'm starting to think you're ashamed of me.
Ashamed of you? Never. Well, my family, on the other hand.
What are they? Knuckle-dragging Holocaust deniers? Are you descended from a line of ogres? What?
They're clueless. They will make polite small talk while feeding you pierogies with potatoes and a side of potato pierogies.
Harsh.
And say 8 cringe-worthy things while helping you to jellied salad.
That's what family is for, babe. To embarrass you in front of your lover. My ma has full-on called my bluff. Said you were a figment of my imagination.
Maybe I am. Think about it.
Nah. If you were a fantasy, you'd wear more lingerie and talk a whole lot less.
Tonya, can you quit that?
Quit mining my personal life for comic gold? Yeah, nope. I don't really control the funny.
What does that mean?
It comes through me, but I'm not really the one in control.
Well, that's creepy.
What? No, creepy. No, it's amazing.
You are amazing. But I'm not really comfortable with you making jokes about us.
That's what I'm saying. It's not me.
No, it's clearly you, Tonya, up on the stage cracking everyone up about our sex life and...
Someone or something else that takes over.
Okay, that's super creepy.
You call it my subconscious.
I think you mean unconscious.
Damn it. You promised.
Freud used the German for sub and un interchangeably at first, but later made a distinction.
You promised that if I shacked up with a professor that you could turn off the autocorrect. Lies. All lies. There's no off button. No mute. That's the problem with women in general. As a rule of thumb, they never shut up. Not allowed to avail yourself of the duct tape either. Oh, could I use that?
Misogynist and violent. Great.
Look, how come a dude can make a joke about how the wife isn't giving him any? Or she is, lucky bastard, and wink wink, nudge nudge. We all laugh right along with him.
Could it be the unacknowledged continued dominance of heteronormative patriarchal mainstream culture?
I want that laugh that dude gets when he tells us all his wife gave him son. Everyone's like, yeah, Melvin, you go boy, you went and got yours.
That's so het, so cis, so incredibly sexist that I can't even begin to... Wait, also, who's Melvin?
Not important.
Someone from work?
He's like an everyman. So I'm like, guys, what's your hot tip for when you really need to get some head? What do? Dip it in Bernard Callebaut chocolate? And nothing. Crickets.
Did you actually make that joke at work?
Yeah. It's the 21st century. If they can handle it, they can suck my dick, I told them. It's a damn joke. Does that seem like something a shift supervisor would write you up for?
Oh, Tonya.
Making people laugh is what I do. When I crack a joke, I see just a tiny friggin' bit, just a sliver of change. And that is why the Creator put me on this green earth.
It's great when it works, but it can hurt people too.
No, I'm not talking about the down punch. I want that great cosmic belly laugh, the one that rattles your teeth and shakes your guts, makes you question everything you know. That is the true medicine, Max.
Wow, that's so beautiful, but...
So I ask you, was I put on this earth to sit in a cubicle in a call center?
You got fired, didn't you?
Of course not. I quit. I'll get another Joe job, don't sweat it.
I can't help but sweat it. It's what I do. I sweat it.
So this thing I want to show you. We've been seeing each other now for, what?
6 months. 6 months and 3 days.
Right. And I haven't felt this way about anyone. I wanted to do something special to kind of mark it, you know?
This can't be what I think it is. Here at Chicken on the Way? Ton? Oh, it's a tattoo.
Wait, what did you expect? Were you thinking like an engagement ring or something like the straight folks do? I mean, we can do that if that's what
No, I mean, this is beautiful. It's like a figure 8 on its side. The sign for infinity?
It's the Métis flag. And below it, here.
Our initials.
You don't like it. It's too much.
No, it's not that.
What?
I'm just processing. I mean, you're the sweetest, funniest, wisest, most beautiful woman I've ever laid eyes on.
Ah, stop it. Actually, go on.
You're talented and badass, and now you have tattooed my initials on your flesh. I'm living the lesbian dream.
So you do like it?
Like it? I love it. I love you. I am speechless. What are you doing?
Oh, calling Ma. 1 sec.
Wait, now?
She bet me $50 that if you did exist, you'd run screaming. Ha! Take that, Ma.
You made a bet?
Hey, Ma, what you doing? No, she liked it. Here, ask her yourself.
Oh, no, don't pass me the... Oh, hi. Hello. Yes, I've been wanting to meet you too.
My big sister Leah has got to be the most determined person on this earth. We lost our mother when we were children. All I remember is the print of her apron, the softness of it against my cheek. But what do you look for in a mother? Someone who loves you come what may? I have that in my big sister Leah. She trained as a legal secretary and has filed appeal after appeal on my behalf. She says we must remain optimistic. The optimist would tell you that this cup of water I have is half full. The pessimist would tell you it's half empty. The politician will promise to fill it to the top if elected. The cynic wonders who drank the other half, while the fellows back home would be wondering, who's buying the next round? What I'd give to be back there with them now. I don't know what I'd do without my sister. Dear Everett, she writes, I have great news at last. Mr. William Watney has agreed to take your case. He comes from the Cree people in Saskatchewan. He has battled adversity to become the first Indian lawyer in Western Canada. He is a fine gentleman and a champion of his people. I have high hopes that he can finally force some action on your appeal. I tell you what, we should all be so lucky to have someone like this in our corner. Here's to my sister Leah and Mr. William Watney.
Thanks for the eggnog. It's delicious.
No trouble. Sure you don't want a little nip of something in there?
That's okay. Thanks. So you were mentioning how the police would just detain people in certain parts of town? Question them without just cause?
Oh, you counted yourself lucky if all you got were questions.
Did it happen to you?
They put me in the back of a squad car one night, but I talked my way out.
How?
I told them I was new in town and got lost. They warned me about the queers lurking in that area. I thanked them for warning me. I was a coward. Not like Everett. I always think of him at holiday time. The year they put him in jail, he'd been chosen to drive the Christmas bus. It was a big honor.
Really?
Oh, he was really excited about it. But the judge set his bail at $9,000.
That's a lot of money back then.
If you knew how many times I wish I could have gone back in time and paid it for him.
He was given a 10-year sentence, but according to the timeline I've pieced together, he was released after 5 for good behavior?
Well, that's Everett for you. Chased up a tree by a lion, he'd still admire the view. He was just so damned good. You know? He did the right thing and not to impress people. It came from inside, and he took the hit for all of us. Took it right on the nose.
How do you mean?
Cops wanted him to name us. He wouldn't.
He pled guilty to protect you?
He would never bring trouble to the door of a friend.
That's brave.
Yes, and jail. For a guy like him, he suffered in there.
I can imagine. And when he got out, he left to work in the north?
He wanted to leave all this behind. He wanted a fresh start. But they wouldn't let him have it.
You saw him before he left town?
Yes, I did.
Well now, haven't you come up in the world?
Managing a crew, hard work, but I like it.
Looks good on you.
Thanks. Listen, I got your letters. I should have written back.
That's all right, handsome. I didn't have much for news. Prison is nothing to write home about.
Was it terrible? I should have visited.
It's no place to spend your free time. Don't fret now. Let's just put it in the rear view, shall we?
That's for the best. Now, Everett, I'm going to give you some advice, and you can take it or leave it, just as you see fit.
What's that?
Find yourself a wife. A good woman who will give you the space you need to keep a little bit of life for yourself. who will keep the house and look after the children.
A wife? But what about us?
You can't be a man without one. You can't let these feelings control you. You have to take all these stormy and powerful feelings and carve out a little portion of your life where you can feel like this.
I can't.
Do you want me to stop?
No, please. Don't. Stop.
You find a little corner of the world where you can be free. And when it's over, you take all those feelings and you lock them up tight in a strong box. The strong box is your heart. Then you go and find yourself a smart woman, a woman who knows which way the wind is blowing, and settle down. Listen, I'm sorry. I shouldn't have said what I said to you before.
What's that?
About not being like you.
Why not? If it's what you believe.
You gotta find a way to play the hand you've been dealt.
Pretty bad hand, handsome. Maybe we should pitch it in.
This is the way the world is. You gotta toughen up, learn how to take a punch, or these guys out here, they'll eat you alive.
I got a lesson on taking a punch or two on the inside.
Maybe learn to throw one then. Come on.
You won't make me do it, handsome.
No?
Nothing I want bad enough to ever raise my hand against my fellow man.
You sure about that?
Quit it now.
Nothing at all in this world you want bad enough to fight for? You can have me. Right here. Right now. Would you fight for that?
In the dark.
Poor offering. But I'm all I've got to give.
I'll take it.
How's our Mr. Klippert this morning?
I have here a new box of his letters that were stored in his great-niece's attic. I have to get them back to the family by Monday. From what I can tell, he was the sweetest, most honest man on this great wide prairie, which led directly to his downfall.
Like you.
No. Each time he stuck out his hand in friendship, they slapped cuffs on it.
He bought into the system.
Oh, that's what you mean, like me. No, I don't buy into the system.
No?
I am trying to change it, but I don't buy into it.
All right. Making a sandwich, you want one?
Not hungry. Somebody smart once said that prison is all in the mind. You can be in prison while you walk outside and free while you are locked behind bars. Yes, prison is all in the noodle. You have to take it minute by minute.
You never know. The one after this one might be just a bit better.
Eat.
Okay, I get it. I get it now. You know why they were so hard on him? He refused to be ashamed. Kept on finding ways to be happy no matter what they threw at him.
Cool. I'm starting to get a little jealous.
You're jealous of a man?
A bit.
You're jealous of a dead gay man?
Well, he's getting more attention than me.
Look, I'll get this paper in for publication. We'll go out for dinner, away for the weekend, all the things. So when he finally gets out of jail, he starts going by his other name, George. He gets married to a woman, refuses to talk to anyone about his life before. He could have been a hero, a spokesman.
You can't make him into the icon you want him to be. Oh, poor Max. Pull all the microfiche you want, you just can't tidy up this fucking messy world.
Why?
Why? Because people, for the most part, suck. And I'm not just talking about your people. Want to know who hurt me the most? My own family. Now, why would that be?
You only hurt the ones you love?
That's a maxim, Maxine. Put a pause on all of this and come to bed.
I've blown this deadline twice already.
15 minutes. We'll go for a record. I guarantee you, afterward, you'll see the whole world in a whole new light.
Sex isn't some magic button you just push to make your problems disappear.
What are you talking about? That's exactly what sex is. I mean, I know this job is, important and all.
10 years living like a student, squinting over microfiche and eating Mr. Noodles. If I don't get this position, I'm stale bread at the bakery. No one else will want me.
Don't say that.
My skills are useless in the real world. I have no clue what else I could...
Max.
What?
You can be Max, who loves old things, and Weetabix with honey in the morning, and vinyl records, and me, right?
Yes, but...
No job can change that. I mean, why do you do all this? Is it just a fetish for white gloves and special collections?
White gloves aren't used anymore, actually. The bleach and the cotton damages the documents.
Or with the librarians who wear them?
I may have a penchant for librarians.
Fetish.
Technically, a fetish would be for the object, whereas a fascination with a whole person or activity would be a kink.
Quit it, or I'm going to go and get a pillow and start the biggest pillow fight you have ever seen.
It's just a lot of responsibility. I can spend years soaking up information, letters, newspaper clippings, court documents, but all that work can be dynamited by a letter from someone's attic or something a senior citizen tells you over scotch.
Well, I think you're doing the right thing going to an elder.
Isn't it appropriation, though, to use that term?
Settlers are hilarious. Worry yourself sick about using the wrong word, but when it comes to huge land grabs, scooping up natural resources, no problem.
I fully accept the implication that comes with my position, but I rankle at being lumped in with the settlers constantly.
Oh, do you rankle? Seems dangerous. What happens when you rankle?
What are you doing?
I'm trying to get you in the sack. I thought it was obvious. Look, Max, I don't know how to say this. We are just not...
What? We're not what?
Clicking or something, because some part of you is always gone. Like off, always off, someplace else.
That's not true.
It is. Like you always take your feelings and
Lock them away.
Please don't say that. I'm right here.
Physically, yes. But you, the real you, your spirit, you keep it locked away in some kind of strong box.
No, I don't do that. I just have to get through exams.
But there's always going to be something that comes before me.
No, Tonya.
Why haven't I met your family then? Or anyone from work? Maybe you're not even gay, Max. You ever think about that? Maybe I'm just a pit stop for you.
Don't say that.
Yeah, you've just pulled in for a lube job to get you ready for your shiny new life. A nice cushy job, find a nice enlightened dude to marry and settle down.
That's a cheap shot, and it's just not true.
Then why are you ashamed of me?
I'm not ashamed of you. It's just...
Just what? Never mind.
Where are you going?
To the club. I have a gig tonight, by the way.
Right.
Forget it. You're busy.
How old did you say you are now?
A gentleman never tells and a lady never asks.
I do need to know, though, to resolve a couple conflicts in my timeline.
You and your fucking timeline.
You met in 1960 or a little before, is that correct?
What are you trying to insinuate? You got something to ask? Just spit it out.
I'm trying to get a fulsome picture of your life and Mr. Klippert's.
Life was the shits. There's fulsome. The shits. Put that down in your report.
Look, you're not feeling well.
I am not feeling well, Maxine, because I am fucking dying.
I could come back tomorrow.
I might be dead tomorrow. Your call. You're still here.
Yep.
Sit. What do you want to know?
How old were you when you and Mr. Klippert were intimate?
18, 19, I don't know exactly. Why do you want to know that?
I got a phone call from someone who alleged that Mr. Klippert took advantage.
Well, that's not true. I was a man. I knew what I was doing.
Did he give you money?
He loaned me a $5 when I needed it, bought me dinner if I was hungry. Is that a fucking crime?
I'm not judging you.
I wanted experience, I needed kindness, and he showed me both. I felt things for him that... Look, you're a historian. You tell me, has the law ever been able to deal with love?
Handsome, were you in love with Mr. Klippert?
We didn't walk hand in hand by the river. Didn't carve our initials in tree trunks. You give pleasure, you receive it. That's all we had. But you're free to live however you want now, so what does it matter?
It does matter. Our past matters.
Look, what are you after exactly? Some findings, some factoids to fill in the blank space on your paper?
I want to understand, to create a fulsome history, but how can I when you won't tell me anything, or even decide if I can print it?
I wanted a quiet life.
You hid, and you told Everett to do the same thing.
You want some tarted up version of how it was? Well, I won't give it to you. People's lives were torn apart and they died in shame. That's it.
That's why we fought for the apology, are still fighting for the full official pardon.
You want to take my story, Everett's story? Drag us all out into the light? For what? To make yourself feel better?
No, that's not what I want.
Well, I won't do it. He's dead. Let him rest in peace. I'm mostly dead, too.
I'm sorry.
Sorry. All these fucking apologies. You're just too little too late. I'm not part of this. I'm not a proper queer anyway.
There's no such thing. We're all just...
None of this means shit to me. I think you should leave.
It's just that I had something... Not something for the study. Something personal to ask you.
Well, spit it out then.
But now, I can't.
Well, of course you can't. You're a mouse of a person, and this is a stupid thing to be wasting time on. Go on, get out of here.
Lesbians. So tiring, am I right? With their causes and ethics and very particular political opinions and their cats. Somebody tell me, what is it with lesbians and their cats? No more than 3, ladies. That is the cutoff. I swear, if I have to listen to one more story about the skin ailments of the long-haired tabby, I'm going to cut someone. And potlucks. Lesbians and their potlucks. Can we just visit each other without leaving a trail of hummus and bean casserole? Where are my queers in the audience this evening? Let me hear you. Your family cool with it? My ma is pretty down with my dykitude. But recently I had to break it to her that I'm not just dating a woman, I'm dating a white woman. And you know what she says? Make sure she's good in the sack, because from what I've heard, them white folks are pretty inhibited. And you know what? She's not wrong. You've heard of lesbian bed death, right? Well, if you haven't, good on you. But sisters and brothers of all stripes and creeds, no matter where you like to poke it or have it poked, heed me now. Do not let bed death happen to you.
White girls in bed, that's fucking hilarious.
Uh-oh. Hey, everybody, meet my old lady. I bring her along to heckle me at all my shows.
Someone want to buy me another drink? I think it's going to be a long night.
I don't think you need another one. Seriously, I wasn't talking about you, babe. Total wildcat in the sack, folks.
Oh, it's not me.
We're doing this?
Oh, just a different white girl who sucks in bed.
Here? For real?
That's a relief.
Okay. Game on. So, folks, anyone here knocking boots with a professor? A teacher of any kind? It's taxing, right? Do they correct your grammar? Have rebuttals for everything? And just never shut up? But, I suppose I should be happy to meet a teacher in this country who doesn't beat me and make me sit in a corner. She didn't steal me from my parents or anything, so I guess I shouldn't complain. White people, honestly, you people got some messed up traditions.
You can't do that.
Do what?
If I said you people...
You'd be a racist, imperialist bigot.
Exactly.
Hey, we've had the shitty end of the stick since you got here and went all genocide-y on us, so we get the moral high ground. Want to swap? So hard to find the G-spot, isn't it, guys? You're just flying blind, flailing around like, is it here? Over here? I'll let you in on a little something. That whole one-spot thing is a total myth. Like Columbus, finding the new world. There is no spot. There are like 5 zones, each with their own sensitivities. It's complicated. I know. I feel your pain.
Tonya, I can't.
Aw, don't leave now. This is just getting fun.
I can't do this anymore.
I think I just got dumped. Before a live audience, ladies and gentlemen. Oh, sorry, was that too binary? I meant gentle folks. Was that a first here at the Laugh Rack?
That was fake. You set that up.
No, actually, I might have if I'd thought of it. But that was pretty real. A bit too real, actually. Okay. I think I'll leave it at that. I best be getting home to start loading all my shit back into the U-Haul. Thanks. You've been a great audience. They tell us to say that at the end no matter what happens.
Lady answered when I called last time.
Yes, that was my wife.
She sounded nice.
You sound surprised.
Not really. You can't be a man without one, after all.
Look, I said some things...
Don't sweat yesterday. Each day has enough trouble of its own, don't you think? No hard feelings. Your wife doesn't mind that you come down here?
We have an understanding.
Precious little of that in the world.
She's a good woman. We share the cost of things, the housework. There's something else we share too that I didn't tell you last time.
What's that?
Kids, 2. A boy and a girl.
Wow. You're a father. Why, that's really swell. Are they happy and healthy?
They are.
I'm so pleased for you. Truly I am. And so glad I have a chance to congratulate you before I leave town.
Where are you going?
Up north.
North? How far?
As far as I can get. Past the North Pole and the icebergs and the polar bears.
What are you going to do up there?
Answered an ad in the paper. Got a job in the Northwest Territories as a mechanics helper.
It's so cold up there.
Well, there's cold and then there's cold, you know.
You could get a job here in the city.
I'm looking for a fresh start, too.
That makes sense.
Tell you this. From now on, if they ask me, are you a homosexual? I'm going to stand up tall. I'm going to say, yes, I am a homosexual. How about you?
My friend, you can't do that.
Here's a little thing I learned in prison. If you drop your eyes and cower before a bully, you know what happens? He hits you harder.
Trust you to find the bright side of prison.
Not so bright.
All that time? How did you do it?
Every morning, I'd wake up and find myself in the same place and say, can this be real? This can't be real.
Yeah.
But it was. And slowly I saw that some men will stay in prison their whole lives, even after they get out of jail. I thought, if I ever get free, I want to really be free.
I'm sorry I should have visited. I should have written.
Don't be sad now. Remember, a smile is happiness that is found right under your nose.
Will I ever see you again?
Look me up if you ever come up north.
How will I find you?
Oh, just head on past Santa's workshop. If you get lost, ask Rudolph for directions.
So, this is goodbye.
So long? Let's say that instead.
At first, penguins with chicks circulate on the outside, avoiding the pressure within. As the weather
Max,
worsens,
we need to talk.
look for a place to tuck in.
Shh, I'm watching this. Just getting to the good part.
What is it?
Eventually, a huge
Documentary about emperor penguins. In a minute, the mama penguin is going to come back and regurgitate half-digested fish into the mouth of the chick.
those on the outside
There.
are still struggling.
See?
Okay. It's a mess in here. When did you last eat? Let's go out and get some breakfast, okay?
Not hungry, don't want to.
Fine. I'll sit here with you then. Remember the 2 male penguins that paired up?
More than 1,500 species have homosexual pairings. It's not unique. Mention this in class, however, and you're sure to fall down a wormhole of Darwinist speculation, because students would rather talk about penguins than social policy.
Those 2 daddy penguins passing the egg back and forth on their feet. So cute. Can you blame them?
I do, because applying instinct and biology to human society is not only misleading, it's destructive.
Did you make your deadline?
Fuck my deadline. None of it matters now.
Max, it's okay. Look, people mess up now and again.
On second thought, let's talk about gay penguins.
Birds. Fine. Let's talk about birds. There are some. Which ones are they? Ducks? Geese? That mate for life. And some...
I believe you mean swans.
Okay. Swans form a 1-to-1 lifelong bond.
But we are not bound together by some essentialist, honking biological imperative. Find a life form that appeals to you and then proceed to clamp yourself onto it in a death grip, come what may.
You're hard to talk to sometimes, you know?
Part of my madcap charm. No, look, you clearly have something on your mind, so...
Okay. You and I, Max, things have not been great the past little while.
Yeah.
People grow. They change. Damn it. Why does everything that comes out of my mouth right now sound like a cliche?
Because there are a finite number of human disappointments. Just an infinite number of ways to play them out. We are a cliche. Life is one big cliche.
Intimacy is...
Go on, you were saying.
complicated. And we haven't been intimate in a while.
Which is my fault, I'm sure.
No, it's not anyone's fault. It's just the feeling between us.
Tonya, I am tired. Just spit it out.
I'm trying, but you...
You already dumped me in front of a live audience. What else do you want?
I didn't dump you. You dumped me.
You tore apart our relationship on stage. It hurt.
Yeah, well, things hurt. That happens. But you're the one who left. I know it must seem like I pick on you in my act. But academics are such easy targets. So are white people. So are lesbians. So you... the whole package.
That's why you're with me? Great material for your act.
At first, maybe. But since then, I have discovered your other qualities.
Such as?
They're hard to spot right now.
Fuck you.
I deserve that.
You're deliberately trying to pick a fight, and for the life of me, I cannot...
I'm not.
I'm tracking back through the conversation. Texts I sent you last night that didn't get answered. Ducks, swans, intimacy. We're not breaking up. Oh, got it. You want to sleep with other people.
Babe,
Person. One other person. Oh, you did. You already did last night.
I just don't know what is going on with me.
How's that, since I seem to have nailed it? Look, we're not swans, are we? So forget the life we could have built, the children we could have had.
Wait, you want to have kids with me? We never discussed.
Wanted. Tense is important here. Who is she? That little shithead with the lopsided hair that works the door? No, I don't want to know.
I haven't made anything this solid with anyone before, and I don't want to lose it.
What are you afraid of losing? A drafty 2-bedroom rental with a view of the alley?
You. Us is what I don't want to lose. I don't want to break up.
So what, you want to go out, do your shows, and fuck girls who come out to see you perform? And then come home to me where I keep the heat and the lights on?
No.
Only instead of lying to me because that gives you, I don't know, some kind of moral itch, you just want to be able to tell me about it?
No, I am trying.
To what, Tonya? Trying to have your cake and eat it too?
No. Find out what makes me happy.
Well, that's banging the bouncer behind my back, apparently, so have at her.
Oh, look, I've never had sex be so important before. I've never had it be this make or break thing. Not in my life so far.
What was it then? What is it?
Sometimes sex is love. Or friendship.
Friendship?
Or comfort. Or safety.
Well, that's gross. What am I, some kind of ratty old blanket?
I am trying to turn the corner and trust. A relationship needs that, I know.
I can't do this.
Everyone makes mistakes. It doesn't have to be the end of everything.
You'll have to get that tattoo off your arm.
I don't want to take it off.
Get someone who knows what they're doing. You don't want it to leave a scar.
Maxine, please.
Or maybe you do. Something to remember me by.
Don't do this!
Get out!
So, here we are then. Now, take a seat.
This is it? This is jail? Looks like someone's house.
Here in the territories, you work with what you got. There is a lockup room, but we won't have to use it unless you plan on being trouble, Mr. Klippert.
I have no plans at all of that, Constable Armstrong.
Glad to hear it. Get you a cuppa?
Much appreciated.
Now, I guess you know why I brought you in here.
I reckon I got a pretty good idea.
On the matter of the fire that someone has set.
Oh, the fire.
So you know about it?
Not as such.
But you just said, oh, the fire, as if you knew.
No, I mean, I heard of it, but I thought you were going to ask me about something else.
What did you think I was going to ask you about?
Oh, no, I really prefer if you go ahead.
Fact is, I called you in here to talk about the fire, but then I pulled up your record. There are some very serious charges here. Anything you want to say about that?
No, sir.
You got family up here? Maybe they shed some light?
My family. Please, don't call my family.
We'll see now one thing at a time. This fire that you mentioned.
I didn't mention it.
The fire you knew about.
I heard about it, but I had nothing to do with it.
The destruction of private property in excess of $5,000. Arson is a serious thing, that's for sure, but it's nothing compared to what you left behind, is it, Mr. Klippert?
I did not start the fire.
Maybe not, but I smell smoke. Mind telling me why you chose to come up here, to Pine Point?
Answered an ad in the newspaper. I work 12 hours, 14 hours. I do whatever's needed, and I don't complain. You can ask my boss at the nickel mine.
Oh, I have already spoken to your manager. He vouches for you, says you're a good worker. You even eat meals at their house on occasion. Just a regular guy.
That's all I ever wanted to be.
So, on the one hand, I have this regular guy just trying to get on in the world. On the other hand, I have these charges. I must be missing something. Can you help me connect the dots?
Connect the dots? I'm not sure what you mean.
Have you done him any special favors that would cause him to stick his neck out for you?
No, it's not like that. I eat dinner with his family.
So I hear. I spoke to his wife as well.
They've been very kind to me.
They let you babysit their children.
Yes, I come from a big family and I love children.
Is that a fact? And when did you say this began?
What are you writing? Please don't write anything bad. I love children in the ordinary way, the normal way.
As opposed to what, exactly?
You're getting this all wrong.
Help me get it right then. What exactly were you convicted of in Calgary before you decided to come up here to Pine Point? Everett? You with me?
Sorry. Yes. I'm just thirsty and just so tired.
I'll get you a drink in a moment. Start from the beginning. Where did you work in Calgary?
In the dairy at first, but then I got my dream job, driving the bus on the downtown route. Calgary Transit Operator, at your service.
Oh, don't try that. You know quite well we're not in Calgary.
No, I know that.
You're in Pine Point, Northwest Territories.
Yes, I understand. Sometimes I catch glimpses in the rearview mirror of how life could have been. Would you believe that I can tell you just about everything about a man by the way he lets his body down onto the seat of my bus? I can tell if he's going home to a hot dinner, a warm, loving family, or a cold plate in a rented walk-up. Now, the rule book says that a city transit driver may not delay the schedule of the bus to accommodate a single passenger.
Mr. Klippert?
You won't believe it, but I can read your life by studying the whites of your knuckles. See who you've loved in the crinkles around your eyes. I should pull away. But have you ever really seen the way someone with nowhere to go drops their body onto a seat? Fire me if you have to, but I won't do it.
Excuse me?
Sorry. I kind of floated away there for a moment.
Do that a lot, do you?
Sometimes. The world in my mind is just a whole lot kinder.
And yet, this is the one we live in. I'm starting to understand you, Everett. The fact is, I don't think any of this is your fault.
Okay.
I know men, a lot of men, that would want you strung up from the rafters right now, just for what I read in your file. But I don't.
You don't?
I think we have to look at this like a sickness.
I'm not sick. I don't feel sick.
Not in the usual way, son. With this kind of sickness, this is all to do with your childhood. You might be sick and not even feel. You might not even know you are sick.
Why did you pick me up?
I told you. For suspicion of arson.
Did someone told you I was coming up here, didn't they?
Should they have? Would you say that you had any proclivity toward fire as a child?
Not that I remember.
Did you wet the bed as a boy?
No. Why do people keep asking me that?
There is a well-documented link between bedwetting and fire setting. Tormenting small animals and murder. You ever bother animals?
Of course not.
Sodomy and pedophilia. We are trained to detect all these patterns in human behavior. Did you wet the bed as a child? Even one time?
I don't know. Maybe. I'm so tired.
Did you engage in acts of sexual nature with boys in this town? You know the consequences of lying to an officer of the law.
Men, yes, but not boys. Never boys.
Young men, then? I am just trying to get to the truth.
But they wanted it too. All I've ever done is try and feel something real. Can't you understand? I never hurt anyone.
The life you lead, it can't be easy.
No, not so far.
Here's what I think. Inside you there is a decent, clean, good fellow who needs some help to get back on the right path.
You're going to help me?
Why, sure. That's why I got into this racket. I might spend the majority of my time waiting for drunks to sleep it off and busting up bare-knuckle brawls. But every now and then, you get to make a difference. Chin up now. Times have changed. You won't be tossed in jail to rot. We are going to rehabilitate you. We can address the root causes of the unnatural act itself.
Unnatural? Funny you should say that, because that's just the trouble. Imagine for yourself that you were being asked to touch a man rather than a woman. It would feel...
wrong.
Yes. That is how it feels for me. To touch a woman. Can you understand that?
I understand. Go on.
I thought, go north. Out past the North Pole, out past Santa Claus. I'd go to the moon if I could, but I bet that wouldn't even be far enough.
That's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind. We want the world!
I fell for it. They got me again.
Good day.
Hello, Mr. Whitney. Thank you for taking my case and for all that you've done so far.
I regret we haven't gained much ground, Mr. Klippert, despite your sister's efforts and the recent change in the law.
But the Prime Minister himself said it. I heard it on the TV. There is no place for the state.
In the bedrooms of the nation, yes. But I have called today with good news and bad news. Which do you want to hear first?
You better let me have the good news.
Well, you are right. Bill C-150 has taken effect. Homosexual acts between two adults are no longer criminal in the eyes of the law.
How about that? Never thought I'd live to see the day, but I never thought they'd put a man on the moon either, but they did that.
Canada has taken a step forward on this issue, if not on so many others.
I'm really sorry about that, Mr. Whitney. Your people deserve better.
Thank you for that, Mr. Klippert. And now for the bad news. Your appeal has been denied.
Okay, Neil, we can see you coming down the ladder now.
I pictured myself just walking out of here. Like Neil Armstrong and Buzz stepping out in their silver suits.
The law is not retroactive. Your conviction was made before the law was changed. Also, some charges refer to public acts, and so you are...
One small step for man.
in a kind of legal limbo.
One giant leap for mankind. Damn it to hell.
Hell of a hard pill to swallow.
How do you think he thought to say that, I wonder? It's a gift, I guess, to know the right thing to say in the right moment.
If it's any consolation, everyone out here is pulling for you. The public is entirely on your side. The newspaper stories, editorials, and features. Gentle Klippert, must he really serve life? The Board of Appeals don't want to release you, but the public wants you to be a free man. You have become something of a figurehead.
I don't want to be a figurehead. I want to be a free man.
I understand you there. And I'm damn sorry I can't be more help.
Thank you for trying all the same.
Change is so slow sometimes you think it won't ever come at all. Can I tell you a story? It might not be of any help right now with your immediate situation.
Well, it certainly can't hurt. Go on, please, tell me.
do you have in your hand right now?
A telephone receiver.
Yes. We take it for granted now, but it's kind of a miracle.
Yes, indeed. Courtesy of Mr. Graham Bell.
I asked for telephones to be put in on the reserve. The phone companies told me no, they would not.
Why not?
Well, they didn't trust us to pay for them. Then put in a payphone, I said, and we will pay our way 1 nickel at a time. And they did. They put the one and only payphone in my brother's house. He was the chief at that time. Then I said to them, now, give us a light bulb. And that's how we got services on the reserves. You gotta fight for everything. Every little thing.
I've never been much of a fighter.
No one expected me to finish high school, let alone go to university. But I did it. No one expected me to go to law school, nor to become the first Indian to earn a law degree in Western Canada, but I did it. If the laws don't serve us, it seems to me we have to keep on fighting to change them and never give up hope.
I suppose you're right.
I am damn sorry you aren't a free man today. That is it, Mr. Klippert. You take good care of yourself.
And you too, Mr. Watney.
This is the great horned owl's time. He's one of the largest and most powerful owl species in America.
Maxine, you have missed 2 appointments now and you've not answered my email.
Handsome? Is that you?
Are you going to let me in or you leave me standing out here in the cold?
Shit.
His eyes are tuned for optimal night vision. But more importantly...
Are you allowed to be here?
It's an assisted living complex, not a maximum security prison.
How did you get down here?
It's a miracle. I've passed on to the next life, and what you see before you is an apparition. The handy bus stops right outside the complex. Got anything decent to drink in this pigsty?
This really isn't a good time.
Depression. That's what your generation calls this. When things go wrong and you decide to stay in bed, we get pamphlets about it at the residence. Relentless optimism is the order of the day. Express any antisocial tendencies and they'll cart you off to the art gallery, to forest bathing, to goddamn laughing yoga.
There's laughing yoga? Come, sit down.
Not a word of a lie. Very earnest young man in tights. Just comes in, starts laughing like a goddamn idiot in front of all of us. Half of us on ventilators, the other half off their head on meds. You can imagine how that went.
Did it work?
Well, I laughed, but I'm not sure it was the right kind of laughter.
A bit on the darker edge?
The tights saved the experience for me. He was well put together. Just because you're on a diet doesn't mean you can't look at the menu.
Here, I have some of this, what is this? Oh, cola. I appreciate that you made the effort to come over here. I'm just...
You're a very busy woman.
Work is the shits right now.
Feeling sorry for oneself is a full-time job. So, our little project, shall we call it quits then?
Fine, if that's what you want.
So, I guess you never did give a damn about Everett or about me.
You weren't even gonna let me print it. So afraid one of your old construction buddies would find out you're gay. You're a coward.
How dare you stand there in your greasy bathrobe and call me? Do you want to know what they would do to you if they got a chance?
What?
Castration. Chemical castration. They made a drink. A cocktail of some uncut poison that made damn sure you could never get it up again.
Did that happen to you?
I made damn sure it didn't.
Did it happen to Mr. Klippert?
I can't know for sure. Heard him to talk about it, but I think so.
Jesus.
They used him to scare the rest of us. We were hounded off the streets, out of our jobs, tossed in jail, beaten black and blue, and used for a goddamn Kleenex. After all that, say you managed to create some kind of a life. Find a bit of happiness, a bit of pleasure. Then a goddamn disease comes through like a merciless wolf.
I've read the accounts.
But you didn't live it.
You're right.
And now you want me to be a role model for you? Why should I if the first time you hit a bump in the road you sit down and cry?
No, this is more than a bump.
Tell me then, what's so bad?
My girlfriend cheated on me.
Is that it?
I messed up at work.
Boo-hoo, aren't you the country song? Did your truck break down too? Oh, did the dog run away?
And this project. I mean, no one will want to publish it if the public thinks Klippert is a pedophile.
Oh.
Handsome, are you all right?
That word. Nothing else compares. Let me tell you, Everett was no pedophile. Was he older than me? Yes. The guys around town, we all knew he was a softie. You could count on him at the end of the night for a few bucks or a warm meal. But he never hurt anyone, never forced anyone. We took advantage of him for God's sake. You have to understand it wasn't like it is now. It was
a different day.
Yes. And we were all so ashamed that we couldn't help one another. I wanted to. When my father contacted the police...
Your father reported Klippert?
Yes. And if you knew how many times I wished I could go back in time. We couldn't fight for one another. We were too busy fighting ourselves.
Oh, handsome.
Do you know what we would have given for the chance to share a life, share a home? But no, your girlfriend took a little roll in the hay because you weren't letting her into the honeypot, so you're ready to throw in the towel.
How can I trust her now?
Let's talk about trust. Does she know you don't talk to your father?
I can't.
Does he know that you love him, that you want him in your life? Have you even told him?
Stop it.
Does your lover know what a little timid mouse you are deep in your soul?
Stop that.
Do you love her?
Yes.
Is there nothing on this earth you are willing to fight for? Not your family, not Everett, not even your own lover, you little mouse of a woman?
I am not a mouse.
Aha. There you are. There you are at last. Fight for her. If it matters, fight for one another.
There's a mismatch between the world as I imagine it and the world that is there when I open my eyes. People are not often kind to a fellow like me. They keep playing those first moments of the moon landing over and over. How I wish I were out there with them. Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin. All sealed up in a spacesuit. And if I ever get out of here, I will walk so slowly, so carefully, just like Neil and Buzz. I won't ever touch anyone ever again. That's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.
Max.
Tonya.
I'm glad you finally answered my texts.
I just needed time.
Look, is this a come get your last box of stuff kind of meeting? If it is, just pull off the Band-Aid and...
No, it's not.
Okay. If this was a final goodbye, then why would you call me down here to the old folks' home?
Seniors' residence.
Right. I know I fucked up. It's not just the sex, it's the breach of trust that does the damage. I should have talked to you.
You tried. I wasn't listening.
Instead of running off for a one-night stand with the bouncer. If it makes you feel any better, the sex was only so-so. Too soon? Too soon. What I mean to say is I am just looking you in the eye, and I am sorry. I am sorry. That has to count for something, right?
It's my fault, too. I compartmentalize. I catastrophize. Try to control outcomes. I turn every bump in the road into some insurmountable
Come here.
Challenge. That feels good.
It does. Whoa. You didn't lie. This place is swank. Is that a bar back there?
Cafe, bar, art gallery, you name it.
I wouldn't mind retiring here one day when the time comes.
Maybe they have double suites. I wanted to meet here because I wanted you to meet Handsome. I brought lunch.
Chicken on the way.
You think he'll like it?
I think he'll love it. He probably ate there too back in the day.
Wait here, grab us a table. I'll go get him.
What is it?
Handsome,
What's wrong?
Sunday night. He's gone.
Oh, Max.
Steph tried to get in touch. Doesn't make sense. He was feeling better. He just came to our apartment. He was fine. Why now?
Come here. It's okay.
It's not okay.
It'll be okay.
But I wanted you to meet him.
I did, in a way. Through you, I met him.
Well, hello there, Handsome.
Everett, aren't you a sight for sore eyes? I have great news. You aren't going to believe it. There's been a pardon.
I beg your pardon?
I said there's been a full apology and a formal pardon.
Did somebody sneeze?
Still a smile on your face after all these years.
Might as well laugh as cry, old buddy.
I've thought of you so often.
I've thought of you too. You did well for yourself.
Built half this damn city.
I read about it. Proud of you.
Thanks. I have to tell you what's happened. You were right all those years ago. The world is caught up with you now, and no one has to run or hide or be ashamed anymore. You were right. They were wrong. You weren't a criminal and you weren't sick.
Never was sick a day in my life.
And I have been waiting half a lifetime to give you this.
What's this now? A silver dollar?
I borrowed it from you all those years ago.
Hush. Don't even give it a second thought.
Please take it. I owe you. We all owe you so much more. If things had been different.
If they had been.
Thing on homosexuality, I think the view we take here is that there's no place for the state in the bedrooms of the nation, and I think that, what's done in private between adults doesn't concern the
Let her speak. Just a moment. just a moment. I would like to avoid any trouble. This is a day of unity for us. I want us to be happy.
All right, it's up to the gay people. What do you want to do?
We're fabulous, we're fuck with us, we're here, we're queer, we're fabulous, we're fuck with us, we're here, we're queer,
This has been Legislating Love, the Everett Klippert story by Natalie Meisner, as part of the Alberta Queer Calendar Project, presented with the generous support of Sage Theatre. Legislating Love is performed by Matt McKinney, Kevin Rothery, Kathy Zaborski, and Jen Forgy. The sound design is by KP Smith, and the director is Jason Memel. Production coordination is by Natalie Meisner and Jason Memel, edited and mixed by Brian Burgum. All episodes are accessible for free at queercalendar.ca or wherever you get your podcasts, and are released monthly through 2020. Follow us on Instagram at abqueercalendar or become a supporter of the AQCP on Patreon. One-time donations can also be made at queercalendar.ca/donate. Cardiac Theatre and the Alberta Queer Calendar Project stand in solidarity with those who experience injustice in the face of white supremacy every day. In support of the Black Lives Matter movement and the people it represents, we encourage you to direct some or all of your Queer Calendar Project donation to your local chapter of Black Lives Matter. The Alberta Queer Calendar Project is produced by Jessica Glover, Harley Morrison, and Liam Salmon, and is made possible through funding from the Canada Council for the Arts, the Alberta Foundation for the Arts, and the National Theatre School of Canada. AQCP is embracing physical distancing during this time of COVID-19. Support for our physically distanced recordings is provided in part by the Edmonton Arts Council. Stay tuned for our next episode, Let Me Keep Opening This Moment, by Elena Bellier.
Yes. Spent half of 2021 so far telling people they've been on mute or apologizing for being on mute myself. Yeah, I listened through. It was really fun. I just sent you a quick text there, Jason, about the difference between like listening when you know somebody's listening. Like I saw, oh, there's like 14 other people listening, you know. It sort of brings a little bit of that frisson that we all miss from live theater back, just to know that other humans were listening at the same time, you know, just a little bit of that like theater zhuzh. Hey, Catherine.
Hi. How's it going, folks?
Pretty good. Pretty good. I felt even more in love with your sound design again. Listening through again, I was like, whoa.
Thank you so much. It's cool to like have the chance for friends of mine to hear it who kind of didn't know it was like out there. So I had some folks reach out and be like, hey, I'm listening and it sounds really great. And I was like, that's cool. So yeah, I think this is really neat that we get to do this.
Yeah. Yeah. Like listening to it, I was like, that's, you know, you write what you kind of wish for, and then you kind of live with what you get usually. But in this case,
Okay. Let's try that again. Can everybody still hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay. All right. Well, thanks again to everybody who just listened or just watched me do a pre-show chat but couldn't hear any of it. I'm going to do it again. Okay, here we go. Sorry. The nice thing about doing a pre-show chat from your phone is that when somebody texts you that they can't hear the sound, you see that immediately. So yes. Again, I'm Jason, the artistic director of Sage Theatre, and the land on where this is being streamed is called Métis and is in the Treaty 7 territory, including the traditional territory of the Nitsiapi or Blackfoot, Nakota or Stoney, and Tsuut'ina nations, as well as Métis Nation Region 3. We are grateful to tell stories here. Treaty 6 is where our friends in Edmonton are. And Sage Theatre also affirms that Black Lives Matter. If you're looking for ways to contribute, please consider the Calgary Black Empowerment Fund or a similar initiative in your region. And so now I want to thank the work of the actors whose voices you heard throughout that podcast, Jen Forgy, Matt McKinney, Kevin Rothery, and Kathy Zaborski, with Catherine P. Smith filling out the world in sound and music. Special thanks as well to Lunchbox Theatre for helping us with the hosting and the Q&A, and the Edmonton Fringe Theatre for helping get the whole streaming set up. And if you want to support the work that you heard or the queer community, please consider donating to Sage Theatre, the Alberta Queer Calendar Project, or Stepping Stone. And links to those should be in the YouTube or on our webpage at sagetheatre.com. And okay, so again, everybody just heard me do this spiel, but I'll say it again. We decided to do this around Valentine's Day as a pre-Valentine's Day event because we think there is something wonderful about celebrating love and its struggles on the eve of a very traditional celebration of this day. And so Valentine's Day can have a very capitalist, a very cis-het normative representation, and in that sense can maybe even be slightly oppressive. How, as a group, would you say, or individually, do you hack or queer Valentine's Day, either for yourselves or in what you're doing out in the world? And I think I will ask Natalie to start, and then maybe Natalie, you can choose the next person to go after you.
Okay, fun. So yeah, it's a $18 billion industry last year. Ever since in 1913, Hallmark said that you had to buy something to love somebody, and but it has its origins in this really dark history, right? Like nobody really knows for sure what the origins of Valentine's Day are, but some of the theories are in fertility rituals. They're in, like, the ancient Romans would sacrifice a dog and a goat and then take the skin of the dog and the goat and they'd like whip, women they were interested in a kind of fertility ritual. Now, this is a dark history that's kind of glossed over by Hallmark. And I love the tie-in to this is because in the play, and this is one of my sort of love-hate things for historians or just for history in general, is that it ruins everything, right? Like history ruins everything, but it also makes everything possible. So that tied in, I love that tie-in for Valentine's Day. Like you could, someone could go and purchase you a gift and you could sort of put a pin in that balloon and say, this is capitalist garbage, right? It's sort of tied to all these oppressive things, and they strung up several Christian saints and tried to sanitize it. And that's sort of what historians do. But at the same time, if you don't keep some history in the picture, then there's no possibility of change. So one of the things that I think the historian in the piece, and I've said many times to Kevin and Teresa and to other historians I know, that I've sort of taken the struggles of historians and sort of put them together and made an amalgam of a character. It's like you can study forever, but one tiny little fact can overturn everything that you put together before. But at the same time, it's so important to try to go back and affirm that our lives matter, as Kevin says. So I kind of have that, they sit on a razor's edge, and they're fascinating to me for that reason. Like history can ruin everything, but it makes everything beautiful. And with that, I'll throw it over to Kevin. Our past matters, our lives matter.
Thank you, Natalie. I really love the radio play, this translation into an audio format. And my Valentine's Day, I guess agitprop would be just to do queer history stuff on Valentine's Day. I did a couple of years ago. I was fortunate. Shelf Life Books, which is the current site in Calgary of an old gay bar called Parkside Continental. We did something called Parkside Love, and we found the original window. There was kind of a stained glass window in the site, and we did a reading and got people together who had actually been patrons of this bar in the 70s and 80s. And I was a little bit worried about doing it on Valentine's Day because I thought, well, it's not really romantic or something, but we had a good crowd come out, and people were thinking about their love for this bar. So I thought it was a nice way of spinning it around. Maybe I'll pass it on to Jessica.
Yeah, I mean, I do have a bit of a romantic feeling about Valentine's Day. You know, I love heart-shaped things, and also it happens to be the wedding anniversary of my mother and my late father, so that's just what I always associated with is, you know, oh, it's about love because it's, you know, their anniversary. But funny enough, I spend most of my Valentine's days you know, working or hanging out with my parents because it's their anniversary. So, I mean, for me, it just seems like an excuse to celebrate love in whatever form that works for you on that day, whether that be, you know, platonic or familial or with your partner or for a bar. You know, I love a holiday. I think it's nice to have an excuse to celebrate, but definitely, you know, the pressure of making it one specific thing that costs a lot of money and that just puts so much pressure on people, I think is unnecessary. And so it's great to kind of hear what people's different plans and experiences are for Valentine's Day, especially this year, because, you know, you're hopefully not going out for, you know, any public plans. Catherine, I want to know more about you.
Thanks, Jessica. This is Catherine speaking, for people who haven't heard me speak before. Yeah, queering holidays is something that I think is a really cool aspect of my life that I get to partake in. Valentine's Day, truthfully, has not been a very important holiday for me in the past. And this year in particular, like my partner and I have never been big on celebrating Valentine's Day. But we wanted to take the opportunity to celebrate some of our friends that we don't get to see or don't get to physically be in a space with and physically experience a form of community or love with at the moment because of everything that's happening. So we're gonna drop off some handmade gifts to people and try to just spread a little bit of love to the community. And I think that's my favorite way to celebrate, I suppose in a queer way to celebrate Valentine's Day is by celebrating my found family and celebrating the friends that continue to love and support regardless of if it's the February 14th or not. So yeah, I would say that's my take on Valentine's Day. And I admit I did go out and buy some nice chocolate yesterday from Chocolate Lab. So supported local, but I wanted really good chocolate for tomorrow. Jason, is it back to you? Do you get to tell us about what you do on Valentine's Day now?
Sorry, yes, I suppose I do have to do that. I've been typing out some of the beautiful statements that are happening here as just good things to keep in mind. And also for anyone watching, wondering why I'm on my phone, it's because that's also how I'm checking to see your comments and comments on all the other platforms that we're trying to watch on this. Yeah, you know, I think I was talking about this. The Valentine's Day for me has often felt like it is strictly it's meant to sell things, at least in terms of how it's currently operating. You know. And that's the, you know, I think I drove past a Dairy Queen saying, you know, reserve your ice cream cake for Valentine's Day. And it occurred to me that I mean, sure, who doesn't want to have an ice cream cake and maybe an excuse for that is not such a bad thing anyway. But that there's also something about that commodification of of the day. And so I think part of what I've been really thinking a lot about, and a lot of this was actually kicked off by Natalie bringing it up, is the idea of how do you hack Valentine's Day. A lot of what I've been seeing, what I really appreciated is people using social media to express their love for someone or express an action that they're taking about their love for somebody. Like, I did this thing for this person, or I'm sharing this memory with this person. And I think maybe not everybody's comfortable sharing that much of what's going on in their lives, but I think what I do appreciate is the feeling of making it about a celebration of love and not about a celebration of a performance of love or a purchase of love. I'd rather hear stories of love than see like, oh, I so and so got me these flowers just for this day, kind of thing. I think, and actually I saw Natalie mention in the comments there that there's also, I think, the idea, like, in terms of hacking, like, that there are, I think there's like, didn't the Greeks have like 7 kinds of love? Maybe the love that we can be celebrating doesn't just have to be a romantic love, a love of walking through the park with somebody, that like, this is also a great day to like call your best friend, or be very thankful you've got an adorable pet who seems to love to cuddle with you. That these expressions of love are valid today too. Cool. Okay. Well, so yeah, thanks for reminding me to say something as well there, Catherine. And also, it occurred to me that I didn't introduce everybody, which is my mistake. So I think maybe on this next question, I'm going to send this one directly to Kevin, but as we're discussing things, maybe just feel free to give a little précis about what your background is and how you connected to the work. So Kevin, a big part of your contribution to this, initially from the very beginning, was about uncovering details of the history, but then also bridging that history, this history, to the contemporary experience of living today as a queer person. And so, what impact do you see of presenting this story as a play in terms of how it impacts people watching it today versus simply focusing on what happened in the past? And then, if you can, what is the experience or the impact of what having it as a podcast? And I think once Kevin's done, I'm happy to have anyone else respond to thoughts on that too.
My name's Kevin Allen. I run something called the Calgary Gay History Project, and I should give it a shout out to Teresa Maley, who's also part of the History Project, who was involved in this process. I think there's something really beautiful about the play in that it makes history alive and relatable. There's something in historic research called presentism, where we sort of look at the past, but we're sort of got this filter of our own present day experience that it makes us, it creates a barrier for us to understand the past. And I think the play cleverly gets at that, particularly with the character of Handsome and the relationship with Maxine. This idea that there's, two different versions of reality that are kind of tussling, and she's judging him in a way in the present based on like present day values. So I've lost the thread of the question. However, I think it's something about drama makes things, telling stories makes things go to the heart, speaking of Valentine's Day, and creates a resonance for us other than the dry, dusty facts that we find in microfilm and old newspapers and things like that. So it brings it alive in a way that's really important.
That's great. Is there, to maybe dig a little further into that, in terms of the notion of drama, so before the stream started, before this chat started, but possibly also when I wasn't accidentally streaming our audio, the one thing you talked about was how refreshing it was to listen to this versus watching something on Netflix, watching a movie, watching a show. Is there Can you maybe look at the impact of having this story out now in a way that doesn't require what it required before, which was everybody to come to one building for a couple of weeks, whereas now people can listen to it for about a year.
Yeah, I think it has a resonance with some of the issues that we're dealing with in contemporary society, and it's anyone who knows me knows the story of Everett Klippert is really important, and I want to share it as widely as possible. And there are lots of historians and academics who, in my opinion, diminish the importance of Everett's role sort of in Bill C-150 in the national discourse. And again, kudos to Natalie for really kind of getting at the nugget of what made it an important decision. And it's sort of like hard to avoid how important it was in Canadian society. So I do think there's a great thing in this play that it can be disseminated so widely. And then on a personal note, my husband and I we're grateful for television and Netflix and those stories, but watching it every night sort of on repeat, just a different show, has become, I guess, for all of us, this sort of monotony of being at home all the time. Not seeing live theater is a real hardship. So hearing something like a radio play is just a real refreshing change.
Go ahead, Natalie.
I just wanted to pick up on something that Kevin brought up. And I think in the initial research phases of this, like we had this great, rich research phase where we dug into intergenerational stuff, where we dug into Métis history and Calgary as a place and Klippert as a figure. And it's really interesting how people can't connect. Like, it's very tough for the generations to connect in a certain way. Different generations of queer people have a problem connecting because they're speaking different languages. And Klippert is one figure that potentially, and this way of telling a story is one way that we can connect to one person's story. As Kevin has pointed out, some people go, oh, he wasn't that important, or the bill wasn't that important, or it's not about legalization because, even after legalization, bathhouses were getting raided, for example. So it's not about that. It's not about that. And to me, it's less important than fighting that battle of like, is one figure bigger than another? And just going, he's important to us, to this group of people, and we offer it to you. Like, we don't say he's the only intergenerational queer figure. But to me, it's less interesting. I'm kind of like, and why not another, right? Give me another then, who enters that space. And if it's not about legalization, then give me another moment. Like, I see it in an additive way rather than, and I know that, of course, where mainstream culture kind of encourages us to scrap over which is the most important icon, right? I don't give a rip. Like, I don't give a rip which icon is the most important. To us, we found him and he spoke to us and we wanted to share it. The moment of legalization spoke to you, Kevin, and you share that in a way that's really beautiful. So I felt like, that Klippert as a character had that generosity of spirit that spoke to us. And then connecting it through the figure of Handsome was really lovely. And Jason and I kind of found that in a dramaturgical conversation. It was sort of like, how do you wed fact, this is what we know of history, with a story and tell it in such a way that people are not just, they're not just having a history lesson. And when we hit on this idea of Handsome, the fictional character, he could be a sort of a repository for lots of things that we know about queer elders, that they're feeling silenced, that they're feeling that their erotic lives are being silenced. And that was a moment, like, I felt like that was a real aha moment, Jason, in that dramaturgical conversation, when you kind of pushed me to think about how do we tell that story dramatically and in a way that is more than just facts. And yeah.
I still remember that conversation, that moment of like, this like, aha.
This could help pull it together.
Yeah. Okay, so I'm going to move on. Did anyone else have any thoughts about that notion sort of just in the notion of like the importance of having a story like this available this way. Because my next question is to kind of direct it a bit in that same focus is, so Jessica, the Alberta Queer Calendar Project, there may be people watching who, or listening later on and watching later on, who don't know about the Alberta Queer Calendar Project. Maybe if you can just talk a little bit about what it is, and then also what I kind of want to know is, how has it been received? Like, what are you hearing from people who have heard the work, both Legislating Love and in general? And what has been the impact, either personally, like as a organization putting this out, or as a in any other way that you can measure or discuss? What has been the impact of doing audio, of creating audio theater by queer artists? So a big mess of questions there, but I think it's also kind of connected to what we've talked about regarding the nature of taking this story and making the podcast.
Yeah, so to give a little bit of context for maybe people who aren't familiar with the Alberta Queer Calendar Project, this is a year-long-ish project spearheaded by Cardiac Theatre, which is a little independent theater company in Edmonton. It's myself and my collaborator, Harley Morrison. We brought in a third playwright producer, Liam Salmon, and also What It Is Productions, which is a production and podcast company in Edmonton. And this was like 2.5 years ago that we brainstormed this idea. We thought, what can we do with the, few shows that we've got under our belt, and what's kind of the next step of that? At the project we had done previously, we had a team comprised of Edmonton and Calgary artists, and so much of that experience, what was special about that experience was people saying, I don't always get to connect with my peers in this way, even though we're like, one highway away from each other. And so we just really had this longing to try to connect as many Albertan artists as possible and celebrate them as much as we could. And so what the Alberta Queer Calendar Project is we were going to select 12 writers with 12 plays who are either from Alberta or are Alberta based, and create 12 podcast dramas and release them throughout 2020 and keep them online for 1 calendar year. We ended up getting greedy and we had 13 instead. And so Legislating Love would have been our November episode, but of course, COVID, things changed in our timeline. So all of our episodes are available to stream for free on queercalendar.ca or wherever you get podcasts. And we've been releasing episodes since January 2020. So they'll also be coming down as the year goes on as well, after they've been up for a year. The feedback that we've gotten so far has been really great. And what's been interesting is because we're releasing episodes, about a month apart, we will get new people to the podcast fairly regularly, as people tell their circles about the show that they've worked on or whatever. And so, you'll have people hearing the July episode who are like, oh, wow, there's, 10 more episodes I can listen to. That's great. And so I think we'll still, even we have a few more episodes to release, I think we'll still get more people being able to listen to this breadth of work from a breadth of artists. We really were excited about the prospect of this project as a way to show all of the kind of unique queer experiences that happen in the prairies or that inform artists from the prairies. And, we wanted to really hammer home this idea that, queer people who are amazing artists can work here and can come from here, because it does sometimes feel like, and I guess this sort of maybe feeds into the last part of your question, it does sometimes feel like we see more work from queer artists in other parts of Canada, like especially on the coast, than they see of us. And so we were hoping that, in some small way that we could sort of feed into the canon of what's out there and who people know and what people can hear from Alberta. I hope that answers all of the questions.
Yeah. There we go. Sorry, yes, it does. And maybe actually to follow it up though, like, is there anything you can call out in terms of any, like, have you heard, say, for example, like you're talking about representing Alberta, have you heard from people outside of Alberta who have been responding to this work? And like, yeah, like any apocryphal stories, just like, or anecdotal stories of the impact that you've heard about?
Certainly. I mean, because our artists are both Alberta-based artists and, expats, it's been interesting to have listeners come in from, different provinces and also some from different countries. I think we've had some like New Zealand or Australia. I can't remember now. But it sometimes feels like, coming from Edmonton, you sort of get used to, I think sometimes your community or your circle of people, so to have, I mean, I don't have a specific anecdote, but I think in general, getting, comments, messages, questions from people who have discovered the podcast that you just don't know, you've never heard of, but, you go to their Instagram page or whatever, and they are someone who you think, oh yeah, I would totally want to be part of their circle. And I'm glad that they came across us. And now that I've come across them, and so many also organizations that cater to, queer folks and artists from across Alberta have, we've discovered over this process too, which I think is just really enriching just for us as individuals as well.
Mm-hmm. What was I was going to, my own ability to unmute myself distracted me from my question. Oh, no, I was going to say, Jessica, one thing, or actually even just to everybody, is that, so after we produced it, again, some people may not know, but when we actually released this, but right between Christmas and New Year's, in that interstitial bit between those two holidays, and I had friends who I told about it, and then they shared it, and people who I shared it to directly who told me about their experiences. And so, one thing I feel really moved by is that there have been people who haven't been on the stream, who haven't been here today, who in many ways I don't know at all, but I have heard these bits of how they've been moved by the story, how they've laughed and how they've cried. In some cases, it's been a bit more direct. Like we know certain friends and colleagues who've commented and been very gracious with their praise. But it's actually for me, that really stunning moment was one of our artistic associates, Cheryl Hutton, posted it on her Facebook. And then the next day, I saw an update, because I've been tagged on the post. I saw an update that, yeah, their friends were sobbing. I don't know these people at all, and that's exciting as an artist to be able to have been able to create work that bumps into people without me having been there to put it in front of them. That's I think an interesting experience, maybe a positive experience in this COVID world. So now I want to shift over to Catherine. I think one thing I've said often is that your work has almost become a new character in the play. You're setting the tone and the landscape. Your sound design basically does all of the set and costume design as you evoke the world. What was your experience in adapting this particular play? Because I know you've also had other Alberta Queer Calendar Project experience.
Yeah, both very different experiences, and really enriching and exciting to work on, and find a way to do sound design and composition in the time of COVID. I'll just plug the other projects I've had a chance to work on. I also did sound design and composition for Aya Face the Facts by Dale Lee Kwong. And I directed These Four Walls by Jay Northcott. I just wanted to quickly plug those to be like, go listen to the other episodes. They're really great. Yeah, the experience of like sort of crafting the world using sound and music. To be totally honest, I was sitting here thinking about it just before you asked me, funny enough. And I was like, Natalie really set me up for success in how she wrote. And I think like I want to give credit where credit is due, especially when you're working with like a brand new piece of writing and a brand new writer to you. That the fact that Natalie wrote just like very minor sound direction, but it just like set the tone and set the world so clearly for me. And for people who aren't too sure what I mean by sound direction, oftentimes at the beginning of a scene, a playwright might put in italics, like it's a 60s diner. And that might be all they say. Or they'll add, like Natalie added, like, they're a chicken on the way. There's the sound of the grease trap. There's people walking in and out. And there was just something about that. There was the fact that I had the opportunity to attend rehearsals, and I knew the character of the actors. I mean, like the actual the people playing these characters really lended itself to how I imagined this would be if it was staged. I also did see the staged production, luckily, but I really separated myself from the stage production when I was thinking about the sound for this, because like Jason said, we're trying to create something that's actually quite different from a theater production. Theater, we have the opportunity to like see what's happening on stage, and we might only need that visual to understand just like a touch between two characters or a look. Whereas audio, you don't have that. If there's a silence, you don't know if the characters are looking at each other. You don't know if they're like, one's left the room. So sound has like a pretty commanding presence. So I think that it was a large task, but it was made very fun and very like accessible because of the people that I was working with. And also like it helps to have the sort of that like experience of like queerness, to be like, oh, I kind of like know how this conversation goes, the music, the relationship between people. I think I can put myself in their shoes and empathize in certain circumstances throughout the show. So.
Is it also maybe okay for me to say that it's not just the sound design per se, but a lot of like the licks of guitar that we're hearing in that's also you.
It is. And
like just as a musician, you're an inspired, amazing musician that I'm a big fan of. So I want to also give you some props there.
Thank you.
Now, Catherine, was there anything in the in that process, like it could be something small, silly, or something like maybe really compelling and interesting? Like, I guess, like, is there a single like sound effect you had to get, or like I know you and I had a lot of conversation about bed floof, and how like how in audio you indicate that like someone has like fallen on a side of a bed or something.
Yeah.
So not to set it up specifically for bed floof, is there anything maybe that you remember that you'd want to bring up here?
Yes. There's a number of things. I'll say two of them though. Also, Natalie said title of my next play is bed floof. I think something really interesting that a lot of folks might not realize is that finding audio from the 60s or finding just straight audio from many years ago is not impossible. It's very possible. There's a historian on this call who could probably tell me lots of really amazing ways to get audio, but I didn't have like a large budget or a lot of time to dig for some of the like really historical sounds. So sometimes you're trying to find A great example is the One Small Step for Man sound that you hear. I searched for so long to find a clip that wasn't like super quiet or really staticky. Like all of the clips I was finding were really altered and like hard to hear. So even the clip that ended up in the podcast is like altered quite a bit. Like I had to EQ it and just like try to make it sound more appealing. Not to mask that, like, not to say like it's not lovely to listen to or beautiful in its own way, but when you have headphones on or when you experience something in your car and you want to actually hear the words, or there's something really fascinating about the way that we remember something sounding. And I remember, like, when I think of One Small Step for Man, I like think of it in a certain way, and all of the recordings I was finding was like, this isn't what I thought it sounded like. So that was something really interesting, was like listening to history. It took a long time to find like Woodstock sounds, and truthfully there are Woodstock sounds in there, but they're also pulled from other music festivals that were a little bit later. And that's only because like I was finding that quality sounded the way that I wanted the quality to, and there was at no point was like a cell phone ringing in the background at this music festival. So I thought that was really interesting. And something that I'll say really quickly, anytime they're in the comedy club and there's an audience of people kind of laughing, it took a lot of time. I just want people to know it took a lot of time for me to be like, I'll insert someone sort of laughing here.
Catherine, remind me, because I think we tried to do, like, we had the actors do like audience bits. Did we use any of those?
We used some. We used a lot of Matt McKinney and Kathy Zaborski's takes. So they are in there. They're just like, they're quite quiet. I didn't want them to sound blatantly like out of place or anything, but they're pretty like blended in there.
And actually, just even a follow-up question now that I'm thinking about it, because the play jumps around in time, and I think the sound design does a really good job of helping us see where we are in that timeline. Like, we're following Klippert, and even though like in the theater we could do lighting and we could kind of say most of the history stuff is over on this side of the stage and the contemporary stuff is over here, like we can create demarcations there, whereas your demarcations are more like almost like you don't notice it until it's already happened, like if that makes sense. So like, because I remember you and I talking about like the sounds, the different sounds of engines in the 60s and 70s versus today. Any like tidbits about that you could mention?
Yeah, I suppose I'd say, once again, for me, it comes down to quality. And by that I mean Chicken on the Way in the past sounds different than Chicken on the Way in the future, but I think those sound clips aren't actually that distant from each other in the years that they're pulled from. And it's what it was about was finding a diner sound that doesn't have anything super noticeable that's like futuristic or current. And I think about the sounds just like when you're out next time in the world, maybe like listen for things on the bus or listen for things in a restaurant that makes you think like, this is 2020. Because like I think for like many, many years, restaurants have sounded like clinking cutlery, people talking. But if you think about like 2020, you might hear somebody like use the phone a lot as an example, but somebody on the phone or like cell phone sounds, or even like the dings of order up isn't really a thing as much anymore. Or the sound of like a machine spitting out a receipt or things of that nature. And I think something that was really wonderful was our conversation early on about music transitions really help audiences be like, I know where I am. So transitions into the future were often a specific tone for guitar, and transitions, back into the past were a different tone from what the other transitions were. So it just sort of like sets you to be like, oh, I've heard that. That means we're going back to see Maxine, or we're going to see Klippert. Yeah.
That's great. Sorry, and I feel like the theater nerd in me maybe dove a little deeper on that than I needed to.
Can I just add something there about the sound?
Yes.
You know, it was a really different experience than seeing the live theater performance. And one of the things that really struck me is how intimate some of those conversations felt. Like I was, particularly Kathy's laughing, you know, like it was just so, I felt like I was like in the bedroom or in the interview. Like it wasn't a third part. I was there somehow in this very private moment. That it was really special how the sound worked for me.
That's great. I agree.
I want to throw out a really quick thing, because Kevin, what you just said made me think. One of my absolute favorite scenes to design for this one was the interview with Klippert when he's in the north. I'm so sorry, I'm forgetting like specifically where he is.
Pine Point.
Pine Point.
Pine Point.
Yeah.
And he's being about to sort of be interrogated in a sense, and Natalie had written that he puts tea on and we hear the sound of a kettle. I don't know if anyone will ever notice that kettle, but I was so excited about where I was timing it out, and the feeling of someone like putting kettle on, turning the stove on, and then hearing it whistle was very intimate and like made me like quite anxious actually, because I felt like I was sitting at that table being told like what you do is wrong, or like being, you know, asked these really hard questions and sort of like found out in a sense. So I totally agree. It's very intimate when it's just audio.
I think that is so beautiful, like, and such a great way to describe it. Like, and I think that's something that sound design, particularly in this form, does that. That it like it's a method that I wouldn't think of using on stage nearly as often. You know, I think that's just fascinating, Catherine. So thank you again for that amazing work. We've got actually a comment on our YouTube channel. The sound design was really good and created the atmosphere of being in a theater while listening at home. So there, Catherine, there's some more praise for you. And we've got some other questions coming up here on the chat, so I'm going to ask them here in a moment. But I want to also go through. I've got two more questions. We may go a little over our time. Is everybody okay if we go a little past 8? Okay, and if you need to drop out, that's okay too. Okay. So this one will start again with Natalie, and then I would be happy for Kevin and Catherine to respond to this as well, but this is more from a more text-based perspective. So you did a lot of adaptation work to consider the play for audio. We kind of heard Catherine talk about that with the nature of like those prompts that you offered, which also I'll call out how good you are at offering prompts, but being happy if the artist takes the inspiration but not the direction, which is something that I've always really appreciated. You'll often ask for a thing and like leave it in the hands of the people making it, even if they're not delivering the word definition of the thing you said. You've always been really good at evoking what's needed for the scene, if that makes sense. And I think that happened again with the adaptation. But and I also tried to support a lot of what you were looking for in the script when I was working with the actors, when I was talking to Catherine. But I want to ask, are there any opportunities to add to the story that happened while you were doing the adaptation? Things that you were like, I can get this back in, or oh, like now that I've had time to think about it, this is a minor change, but I think it's important to the story.
Yes, one of the things that I was just picking up on here, following all the great feedback that we had for the sound, which on the Valentine's Day theme, I'm in love with the sound design. I think like there are some things that worked better in audio than they ever worked on stage. And I think one of those is the overlap, like the overlapping of the voices, which I kept kind of playing with that. I wanted the two worlds to be sitting alongside one another. And I wanted their voices to almost be overlapping. And I felt like it didn't bother me, it didn't bother me, or it didn't seem dissonant at all in the audio, because audio just kind of allows for more imagination, I think, for two realities can sit alongside one another with a lot more ease. So I thought that, yeah, the way those voices overlapped worked super well. The other thing I noticed was the pacing of it. At first, Jason and I had some conversations where we thought, well, it's audio, so maybe I better make it one act, or like all the other pieces on Alberta Queer Calendar Project are one act. So we better just chop this sucker down and make it move along. And like, let's get to everybody's attention spans are short. Like, let's make it a 5-minute play. But then we kind of mellowed out and went, no, it's also the fact that people can pause and listen to the rest later. And so once we kind of approached it in that way and then hit upon the idea of splitting it into 2 acts, then then we kind of relaxed about it and just let the story, boogie along at the pace that it wanted to. And I kind of feel like having had the chance also in the interim between the stage production, the live show, and the book coming out, and then just having the chance to rethink it just for the ear, I feel like I got to sharpen some text things that I always love to do as a writer. You just want to get in there and just really hone it. So those were some things that I enjoyed about the process.
I actually just wanted to speak to that a bit. The nature of that overlap, I think, did really get the magical experience we were hoping for and the ethereal quality we were always hoping for in ways. I don't think we were unsuccessful on stage, but it was powerfully evocative and intimate in a way that kind of akin to Kevin's point, that it does in the stage production, for better or worse, you're still about 15 to 20 feet away from those performers in a small intimate venue like where we performed it, versus being just inches away from your ear is so close to them when you're listening to it in a podcast form, and that overlap again is as close to you as anything else. So I was really moved by that. And I think also Natalie, you pointed out the pace of things is that I think in some respects, like I'm fairly certain this production is longer than the one we did at that we did live. And I think, like, I look at the scenes and I remember working with the actors, and yeah, I think there is a unhurried quality to this that increases its natural nature. Like the scenes, I think, feel more intimate and live because they feel like they're not, like it's not, I mean, for better or worse, again, things on stage tend to have a bit more of a momentum because there's this feeling that it needs to continue, because like we need to keep the pace up, we can't drop it down, like we need to keep the energy up in the air. Whereas here, there could be pauses between actors that are so evocative that are not sort of squashed in the urgency of getting to the next scene. Yeah. Oh, and Natalie's pointing out in the chat here that she was asking at one point both to both Catherine and I if it felt like it was lagging, and after listening to it a couple of times, I didn't think so. Like it felt more natural. So yeah. What was my next question here? I'm just going to go back to the. So this is, again, I'm going to throw this out to everybody, and then I'm going to get to the audience questions. So everybody here has had a chance to contribute to the story of this play. Some of you, like Kevin and Natalie, have been here the whole time. It's been a multi-year journey. I don't know how many years now. 5, maybe. And then some, like Catherine, had a chance to experience the story on stage, and then now is contributing to it in this sense. Jessica is maybe the newest to it, in the sense of like you were helping produce it, but didn't know the script, the play. Or maybe you did. I don't know. Did you know the play before it was brought to the Alberta Queer Calendar Project?
No, not until like Natalie submitted it for the project.
Oh, great. Okay. So this question might have multiple layers because of that space of time that everybody's been involved in. But I guess the again, to kind of also connect it back to Valentine's Day, with Valentine's Day looming, what do you feel the love lesson is of legislating love? And maybe if I'm gonna pick somebody. If you can't answer it immediately, just let me know and I'll move on to someone else. But I'm gonna actually start with Jessica because again, I think you have almost the freshest take on it.
Can you say the question one more time? I need to percolate.
That's okay. I tend to put a lot of context around questions. So you're like, what was the actual question again? With Valentine's Day looming, what do you feel the love lesson is of legislating love?
I don't know. I think they're one of the themes of the show. Like one of the lines that I wrote down while I was listening tonight was, I think it's Tonya says, "Oh, Everett was this big gay hero from right here on the prairie." And I think there's something about like knowing love when you find it and being able to recognize it, that I think is present a lot in both the relationship between Everett and Handsome, and then also Maxine and Tonya. And sometimes there's like messiness in between there, but in both relationships, like you hear moments where the characters go like, they have to like admit to themselves like, oh yes, I do love this person. Like it's this like revelation that, as a listener, it's like, it seems inevitable that like they haven't admitted it to themselves in a way. So I think, just the discovery of what's in front of you, I think is maybe the most succinct way I could put it.
Mm-hmm. That's beautiful. I'm going to maybe move through the reverse chronology there. So maybe I'll go to Catherine next.
Yeah, it's a big question. Listening to Jessica talk, I was like, I think such a beautiful answer. Something I connect with a lot, and so I think it's the love lesson that I personally pull, is learning to love yourself and like be confident in that self-love. Is such a massive journey for, I can't speak for all queer people, but for a lot of queer folks that I know, including myself, and is like a constant journey, and work. So I hear every single one of these characters at some point have that sort of doubt in their love for themselves and are working on it. So yeah, I didn't know it until I said it, but that is my answer.
Oh, that is beautiful. And I think also something I know I needed to hear. So that's great. I think I feel like, again, if I'm going reverse chronology, I'm the one in the middle, so I think that has to be me. The love lesson I feel like I've taken from this is because I look at how much of the way the love is expressed here is like often fighting itself, and I think what you were saying there, Catherine, about loving yourself, how that makes me think about that love lesson of like trying, like of looking at what you're fighting for and making sure that it's connected to what the person you are loving is fighting for, and getting aligned on that. Like I think that's a big thing for the Tonya Max connection, is that watching them come back into alignment in terms of what they know they want for each other, and as like Tonya drifts from that and then comes back to it is I think a really powerful moment. And I think like that's their ability to come back is a beautiful thing that I think we often don't see expressed. So So yeah, I think I guess that's my love lesson about like really making sure you're connected about not just fighting to be with someone, but to be with that person this way. You know, that's kind of my feeling on it. I'm going to go now to I think Natalie, because you were the genesis of the play, and then we'll go to Kevin, who I think in some ways was here before the play. If that's okay. So yeah, so Natalie, over to you.
So one of the things I really love about Everett, the person that I met through Kevin's research and, you know, everything that I read about him and then in his personal papers, I loved his curiosity. I loved how curious he remained about the world. Well, so much hellfire was raining down on him. I found that really inspiring. I also loved how he, despite everything that was happening to him, he didn't feel ashamed. So even though later in his life he didn't want to be an icon, he wanted to be left alone. But in those court transcripts where he's trying to explain his feelings in a calm and gentle way to people, I just found that so inspiring. Like, he didn't seem to feel ashamed. He was trying to let them in to his world and say, this is how I feel. Don't you understand? So I guess that's how I see him as a hero. Not that he was going to lead a march. I see him as a hero because very early he was refusing to let shame rule his heart. And that's why I loved him.
That's great. Kevin?
That's really lovely. I hadn't actually thought about it in those terms, but I think I'm going to dwell with that a little bit. So thank you, Natalie. That's really great. The play really, this time, maybe because it was in audio format, really made me think about connection. And some of you have used the word connect in your answers, but particularly right now in the pandemic, how we're so physically disconnected from everyone and missing everyone so much. This idea that all these humans on this stage, you know, connect or misconnect, or they disconnect. And actually one of the scenes that really stuck out with me was Bill Wedney and Klippert, you know, in this production, this lawyer who really sympathized with the situation that Everett found himself in. And there was this real connection of sympathy and compassion that is very human. And I think, you know, most humans, if given the opportunity, will connect. And it's just so hard right now that we're all stuck in our houses on this Zoom call. But that's the thing that is sort of the Valentine's takeaway for me.
That's great. That's great. Again, another behind-the-scenes moment there. Natalie pointed out that we were tempted to cut that scene, and we didn't. So I think that's great. Okay, so we've got a couple of audience comments that a few things that I just want to point out. Anastasia mentioned that she loved the kettle sound. It did raise the stakes. Amazing work. This is from earlier in our conversation, but Kyle pointed out that it's often an overlooked reality that there are queer people in the prairies, but they're overlooked. And now a more general question that we have is from another one from Kyle. Again, we talked earlier, like this is much from earlier in our conversation about the nature of just creating audio work and staying in for Valentine's instead of going out. His question here is, are there any good queer movie recommendations? So I think I'm going to let anyone unmute when they can think of something there. I've got another question here queued up.
I've got one. I can just shout out one because I just watched one this week. We watched one, again, that we've seen many times, but it's a sort of a favorite, is Morris, E.M. Forster's Morris. In English, it looks like Maurice. But that's another sort of queer historical film, 1913, takes place. And that shows you just even one or two generations back how even more awkward same-sex relationships were. And It's a really powerful story, and only published after he died in 1970. He lived in the closet. Ian Forster lived in the closet his whole life. So it's sort of powerful. He dedicates the book to a happier time. And I think that it is a happier time in many ways. So a really strong film.
Any other thoughts? I think Natalie mentioned one in the chat. Do you want to say it out loud?
Oh, I just love the Tilda Swinton in Orlando. It's kind of an old one, but it's so playful and ahead of its time, and yeah, just really lovely. So that's a fun one, oldie but a goodie. Yeah.
My partner hadn't seen it yet, and we watched it I think last week. But I'm a cheerleader. I had kind of forgotten of what it's like. Be prepared for it. It's like kind of satirical and like very humorous, and also a little bit ahead of its time in like a lot of the language that it uses. But the production design is also just so funny and strange. And I watched it before I was out and related so much to the character. And so rewatching it again, I was like, oh, I get it. It's a great movie.
Okay. Any other notes there before I move on to my last question here? Okay. So the one person commented that it felt more like a radio play than a podcast. The series is calling it a podcast, and it's broken into two audio files, though. Is there a generic difference between a radio play and a podcast? This isn't as directly connected to the Legislating Love themes, but I think it's an interesting question in this, like, trying to make theater and events during COVID. My thought was that a radio play is more like a style, and a podcast is more like a medium, like a way you publish something. But it's interesting that I think like the comment here kind of gives me a sense that a podcast might more generally feel like interviews or say history events where you're getting a lecture or an interview with somebody versus something like this. So yeah, anyone else have any opinions on the difference between a radio play and a podcast?
I do. Some of the podcasts that I love that are making radio drama, because as Jason pointed out, like the podcast is the medium of delivery, and then it can have any content, like anything can live in a podcast, right? But some of the ones I really love, like thetruth.org, they call themselves movies for your mind, which is interesting. So they're signaling with their subtitle that it's going to have like creative content, or it's going to be a story in podcast form. So yeah, and so does Pod Plays, right? What do they call it? Canada's national digital national audio plays, or a lot of people are kind of tagging that onto podcasts to let people know what they'll find within the podcast with their subtitle, which is clever.
Jessica, has that the difference between them come up at all?
I don't know, I have no problem calling these pieces radio plays, but for whatever reason in my mind it evokes Orson Welles or something. So we've internally been referring to it more as like podcast drama. I think when we were like kind of initially, when we announced the project and we were looking for submissions, I don't know if we ever articulated this, but we tried to stay away from the word radio play because we didn't want the writers to feel like limited with what they could submit. Like, oh, I haven't written something that's specifically for audio, so I can't submit this. And most of the work that we've gotten, like this one, is plays that have already had a life as not an audio format, but we were able to transition them into this way. So there's lots of ways that you could describe it. I don't know that I can articulate what I think the difference is between the two, but that's kind of a nugget of what we were thinking as this project evolved.
Great. Let me know if anyone else has any other thoughts on that particular subject. Although actually, one thing that I've also been thinking about radio plays, I think, Jessica, you kind of put put the point on it there, is that like a radio play or radio drama, well, I mean, for one thing, we're not listening to it on the radio. This is, there's no radio involved. But that it does evoke kind of an Orson Welles, but also like those like serials of the 40s and 50s where these were like detective stories, sci-fi stories that were often a lot of fun, but not what we're doing here. And I can imagine that maybe there was a desire to not evoke that as you say, that Orson Welles style. I think that's it for the questions. We've had a good response on our live chat, but a lot of it was just people saying how much they enjoyed it. And I think so. With that, maybe I might draw us to a close. Is there anything? Maybe if everybody can sound off a bit about what's going on upcoming for them and any projects they'd like to point out. Natalie's pointing out that my cat is upstaging me here. If there's any last thoughts on the table about maybe being involved in this project or the experience of listening to it again tonight, happy to hear that, and then we'll draw us to a close. So again, maybe I'll go with Natalie first, and I'll work my way through my Zoom call. So we'll go Natalie, Kevin, Catherine, Jessica.
This has just been great to be a part of, like knowing that other people are listening to it live, and that we would have a bit of this theater zhuzh afterwards, like the post-show discussion. It sort of gives me hope and makes me want to work on some new things. So, which is great. So I have a piece that I'm working on about lesbians who listened to submarines and were drummed out of the Canadian military in the 80s, called Subhuman. So and I think it really works for audio. So this has been super productive for me, because now I'm starting to think, I've got to take all these things that I learned about taking this play and then just craft it for audio for now, and then see later when things open up if it actually works as a live play. I don't know. Maybe it's just an audio piece.
Well, I congratulations, everyone. It was so well done. It was my first time listening to it today, so I premiered it, and I really enjoyed it. And it's really gratifying for me that Everett's story is kept alive, because I think it's a really important story. And, it's a Calgary story. It's an Alberta story, and it inspires a lot of different things. I'm in talks with some people at the City of Calgary. We've got a new LRT line potentially coming in, and the Beltline stop might be called the Everett Klippert stop in the future, largely because we keep things alive like this. So that's like, it's preliminary. I mean, I don't know if I just revealed something, but it's not a done deal. But yes, so Councillor Evan Woolley is very keen on the play, on the story, and commemorating it.
I'm just going to jump in here to say that you may have got at least a few votes or whatever's needed campaigning for that just by mentioning it in this call, because I know at least there's 4 of us that want to help now. Sorry, Catherine, you can go ahead.
No, that's incredible. It ties in really nicely to what I was going to say. I just wanted to, everybody on this call, but also everybody watching, thanks for supporting art in whatever way that we're able to right now. And it's not especially, but like for this particular story, thanks for supporting queer art. Because like people have said, prairie queers exist, and we have things to say and things to do and things to make. So yeah, thank you for spending a chunk of your evening on Saturday with us before Valentine's, and be well.
Yeah, echoing all of that. Thank you all so much for being here, and congratulations to all the artists who worked on this. I think you can really hear every bit of the wonderful work in this piece. It's so fabulous. I guess I'll just do one more plug for the Alberta Queer Calendar Project. We've got a bunch of episodes out already. Our first 2 episodes, which is Local Diva by Liam Salmon, one drag queen drama, and also Emmanuel Doubledam's Avandre, which is in French, but there are English captions available on our website. Those are both coming off of the Queer Calendar website on February 26th. So check them out at queercalendar.ca. And you can hear all of the wonderful work that we've been putting out this year with a few more episodes to go.
And you can also, like, because a lot of us already have our podcast habits on our devices, and you can find it on Spotify, iTunes. Like I found it, I use a Beyond Pod. I was able to find it on there. So yeah, it's available wherever you get your podcasts, as all the podcasts say now. I'm just going to mention a couple of quick things here. So Sage Theatre's got a lot going on. We're going to be doing the Ignite Festival again in a distanced fashion. So keep your ears peeled, or your eyes peeled, or whichever sense organ you want to use to get this information. Keep it open for that. And I also want to say, so again, Edmonton Fringe helped set up the streaming. They're why you're able to watch this right now, as is the Lunchbox Theater, who helped us set up the Zoom call. And so for Lunchbox, I just want to mention they've got a lot going on, including a stage 1 reading of new plays that are happening right now. You can sign up for their newsletter and get invitations to join to join Zoom calls like this, where you'll listen to the play. And they're also doing a call for artists for next year's version of stage 1. And so you can go to lunchboxtheater.com, go to their contact us page to get signed up and to keep all that news coming to you. I just want to say again, if you want to contribute to any of the work that you see heard here tonight, or just in general, again, you can consider donating to Sage Theatre, to the Alberta Queer Calendar History Project, with links that are on the webpage and on YouTube, and also the Skipping Stone Foundation. I'll just mention here that they have a vision. They have a vision. Envision a province where trans and gender diverse individuals are surrounded by positivity, affirmation, and support, free from barriers, stigma, and discrimination. To that end, their mission is to connect trans and gender diverse youth, adults, and families with comprehensive and low barrier access to the support they need and deserve. So if you're interested in supporting them, again, that link is in the description. I think with that, that's about all we've got to say tonight on the subject. I'm going to close it off maybe with a slight anecdote that, again, I'm still happy to have anybody commenting on this. But like, so when Natalie and I were working on the workshop production of this, one of the things that happened is that the family members of Klippert, who are still alive and thriving in Calgary and across Alberta, brought a box of Klippert's memorabilia to our workshop. And it is haunting to me. Sorry, I'm actually kind of getting a little, I had the same feeling when it happened. To see the words in the penmanship of the person we were talking about and we were telling a story about, the amount, the sense I felt of a responsibility to do right by this person, but also the desire to make sure that story was told, was galvanized in that moment. And so I say that now because I want to again remember that although the play is an adaptation and a fictionalization of many things, the person that we're talking about at its core was a real person who went through such real things, and in some ways has blazed trails, but is also in some ways dealing with the same stuff we're dealing with today. And I want to put special thanks to Klippert for having been who he was, and for their family for being so supportive of us as we continue to want to engage with that story. So special thanks to Klippert. And yeah, I think with that I'm done. If anyone else has anything else to say, I'm happy to hear it. Okay, so I'm going to stop the stream. If everybody here on the call can actually hang on a moment, and then I will we'll come back and just do a little bit of a debrief, and then that'll be good night. But to all of you watching at home, thank you so much. I'm so proud to have had a chance to be a small part of making this happen again. So with that, we'll see you all later.